Good evening, everyone. My name is Attorney Mike Crotty. Before we start the regular portion of our meeting, I'm sure everyone's here for the Verizon Cable Franchise Renewal Agreement public hearing. To briefly explain, under federal law, every cable TV provider has to reach an agreement with local municipalities to service their area.
Mike,
and
you don't need a court reporter?
I know we do not.
We do not.
So in doing so, they have to enter an agreement to provide for their service. It's Section 626 of the Federal Telecommunications Act that dictates it. There's a whole bunch of other FCC regulations that guide it, and essentially there are 2 or 3 terms of a very long agreement that a municipality can negotiate. Those are the auditing procedures for how you check and audit their books, and their their franchise fee payment that they're required to make, which is typically a percentage of the gross revenue that they get, or adjusted revenue that they get from their cable TV revenue, and then the documents that they have to give over if there's a right to know request. Sometimes there's something called a PEG, or a public educational grant, toward like a TV, CCTV, or the other TV stations we can see where we all watch local meetings. Sometimes you can get money from them for that purpose. The agreements themselves are generally structured the same, though, other than those 3 terms. As part of the renewal process, one of the portions that we have to take care of is to accept public comment on the current Verizon cable TV packages that people receive, whether you have any complaints about them. To make a very important point, though, this is not for cell service and it's not for internet service. Those are separate portions of the act that are not covered. Our franchise fee doesn't go toward that, and we're not permitted to regulate that. So the purpose of the hearing tonight is really just to accept public comment as our third-party consultant, Cohen Law Group, negotiates the Verizon cable franchise agreement, the long-term one that we'll eventually approve. So in terms of things that we typically like to hear, do you believe that it is a state-of-the-art cable system? Are you receiving appropriate customer service? Do you like the free services to community facilities? The reporting requirements of the cable operators to the municipality, are those adequate in your mind? Do you want a PEG, or a public educational or governmental channel allocated? And are there legal protections within the right of way for when they come in and have to cut their lines? Those are all being negotiated and reviewed by the Cohen Law Group. But again, we're here to accept public comment on if anyone has Verizon cable TV service, on the customer service that you receive from them. Seeing none, I think we can close the hearing. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Call the meeting to order. I'm Danielle Jouen. I'm Vice Chair. John Callahan is joining us remotely, so I'll be conducting the meeting tonight. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to do roll call. We have Bob Cooney, we have Andrew Jacob, we have Martha Majeski, myself, Danielle Jouen, and we have John Callahan, who's joining us remotely. I'd like to start off by announcing executive session. We've had executive session October 22nd, 2025, November 6th, 2025, and November 10th, 2025, at which we discussed litigation, open space acquisition, and personnel matters. The first item on the agenda, I'll note, is presentation. That should be read none. We have no presentation tonight. Moving on to regular business meeting, we're going to go to our consent agenda. And the first item is acceptance of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors of October 13th, 2025, and October 22nd, 2025 business meeting. And that would include all departmental committee, commission, and council reports as posted and received by the Board of Supervisors for the month of October 31st, 2025, which I believe only consists of the tax report this month. Lori. Oh, and the police.
And the
Police and
the
yes,
fire.
and fire.
Yeah.
And
roads. And permits. Is that in there too? Roads, yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is treasurer's report and payment of bills. And I'm going to turn this over to the township manager. For consideration is acceptance of treasurer's report for the period ending October 31st, 2025. Lori, because we are in budget season, I thought it would be helpful for you to provide a little bit of an explanation of what's in the treasurer's report each month.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with the overview of this current period. So for period ending October 31st, 2025, we are showing a general fund balance of about 6.1 million. And that is the total of all of our general fund bank accounts. So that's what's reflected on the treasurer's report. We are currently at about 90% of our revenues for the year, and we're showing 78% of our expenditures, but we do have several year-end expenditures that will bring that number up. So we're about right on track where I would expect us to be this time of year. Back to the treasurer's report. The treasurer's report is a capture every month of what cash we have on hand. So it shows every fund that the township has. We have general fund, capital fund, the capital highways project fund, open space fund, municipal complex fund, our state fund, and both of our police pension funds. So it's a snapshot each month after our bank accounts are reconciled by typically our accountant right now, our CPA firm is doing that for us while our accountant is out.
And our state funds are the liquid.
State fund, yeah, and I can provide additional. The state fund is our liquid fuels fund. We did cover some of this in the budget, but it's a good point to elaborate on.
Just because, again, this has been thrown around a lot, the nomenclature has been thrown around a lot of past meetings. We've talked about operating reserves. I was wondering if you can just provide a little bit of an explanation of how the treasurer's report can give us an idea on operating reserves.
Yeah, so the township does not have a formal general fund reserve policy. All of the other funds are reserved for their specific purposes that you see laid out on the treasurer's report that we discussed, capital fund, and open space fund, things of those nature. The general fund reserve, we have a $6.1 million balance. Our annual operating costs are about that much. So typically when you look at a fund reserve, you look at next year's operating expenses. So our total general fund balance is about the entirety of our general fund expenditures.
So it's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
About.
Thank you.
Also shared, what are some reasons?
Can you share what are some reasons why we would want that amount?
It's a safety net in the event that something happens that you need to draw on the fund. There are different philosophies and different things that you can do with reserve funds if you wanted to dedicate them for a certain purpose. But generally speaking, baseline is a reserve is used it's a rainy day. It's a rainy day fund.
Okay. Unless I'd make a motion to accept the treasurer's report for a period ending October 31st, 2025. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next, approval of disbursements dated November 10th, 2025. Lori, are there anything in particular to call to our attention with regards to the disbursements?
Yes, two things actually. One, in this month's disbursements, you will see it's our second debt service payment of the year for the Sedgley property. So what you'll see in the bills is a transfer, so a request for a fund transfer approval from the open space fund into the general fund, because we budgeted to do that transfer. So the money is being paid by the open space fund, but it's passing through the general fund. So you'll see two things in there. One is the signature on the check to the finance agency that handles the bond payments, and an approval for the fund transfer so that I can move the money for the payment out of the open space fund and into the general fund, just to pass it through that bank account. So that's part one of that. Part two is that we have some other invoices that didn't make it into this check run. So I'm going through those to determine what can wait until the December meeting and what has to be paid before that. Any of the invoices that I identify that were not included tonight, we will do a second check run that will then be ratified at the December meeting.
Okay. So I will move for approval of disbursements dated November 10th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to discussion items. We have subdivision and land development, and this is a zoning hearing board application, 58 Creek Road. I will turn that over to our township engineer. I forgot to introduce our township staff. I apologize in my roll call.
That's okay.
Paul, go ahead.
No worries.
This is my first.
I'm Paul Benjer, the township engineer.
My first gig. I'll get better.
No worries. So the applicant for 58 Creek Road submitted a stormwater management and grading permit application in August of this year. We prepared a review letter, which was received, and we had a follow-up conversation with the applicant's engineer, mainly going through different items, but one was about the lot coverage for the site itself. It is permitted to have a 20% lot coverage. As it exists today, it's already at 23.8% impervious cover, so it's already exceeds the allowable lot coverage. The applicant is proposing to put in a in-ground pool, the coping that would go around it, the shed, and things like that, which would draw it up to a total impervious cover of 26.6%. Of the total lot, it's basically an increase of 2,475 square feet. The applicant is seeking relief, or is seeking, consideration by the board to go to the zoning hearing board for the increased lot coverage. They are also contending, if the board is not agreeable to that they are want to contest my opinion of impervious cover of their existing site, of their lot. I noted that they have a large driveway, which is a gravel driveway. I consider it impervious cover. It has vehicular traffic for it. There was also a large retaining wall that they accounted for now. So they are looking to the 26.6%. They are accounting for everything that I said is the impervious cover, but they are just seeking the board's opinion on whether that is going to be contested or not contested.
Oh, is this that little tiny lot off of Creek Road that was non-conforming below the normal lot size, or different?
No, this is at the intersection of Creek Road and I want to say Pine Tree. It's a private road. Pine Tree Lane, which is a private road.
Paul, will they be made to do their own stormwater management?
Yes, they have an existing stormwater management facility, and based off of what they're proposing here, they have to put in additional measures, and they have proposed to do it. We had some questions going back and forth, but again, we've only gone through one review of the stormwater management application, and they haven't resubmitted. They're going to the zoning hearing board to find out if they're going to get the relief, and that's where it stands right now. But they are not contending or contesting doing stormwater management. They're looking for the lot coverage relief.
I'm sorry.
As long as they do theirs. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
I just missed what feature of their property are they contesting as being part of impervious coverage? You say concrete driveway?
No, it's not a concrete driveway, John. It is it's a large driveway with crushed gravel, and
Oh,
I'm
okay.
contending that it's impervious because it has vehicular traffic. It's not. Based off of our ordinance, anything that has vehicular traffic, if it's gravel, is considered an impervious surface.
So Paul, if you're saying that the only thing that if they're not going to contest the fact that they have to increase their stormwater management, I'm of the opinion that I don't think we should contest this. Does that make sense?
Yes, they have with their zoning hearing board application, they have revised the plan, and that they are taking into account all the different items that I have said that should be considered impervious cover. Now it's just up to because it's expanding on an existing nonconformity, they have to ask for additional relief.
Okay. But if they don't want to perform the additional stormwater management,
They have to.
They have to. They
have to.
They've never contested
Okay.
it. It's more of just
Okay,
the
that's
lot
fine.
coverage is really what is the driving
That's fine.
conversation.
I don't see a need for us to contest this.
So in the back there, it looks like a sort of a wraparound drive. Are they looking to go in the side yard, sort of behind it for the pool?
Right here.
Yeah, the pool will be basically in between the house and that driveway.
Any comments from the neighbors? Any concerns with, I mean, I guess that's not really concerning them unless the stormwater is an issue, right?
Correct. I mean, and the neighbors, for the zoning hearing board, they will be notified. So if they do have an objection to it, they'll have their opportunity to voice their concerns.
And it looks like the neighbors have been or will be notified. That was the last page in our workspace.
Yeah.
And if the neighbors don't want it, they'll show up at the hearing.
Yeah, correct. Agreed.
So unless the board wants to take action to oppose this at the zoning hearing board, no action is required. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does the board, anybody in the board want to take action to oppose this at the zoning hearing board?
No.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Certainly.
I was going to ask if anyone was here for Creek Road, but as we decided not to oppose it, I think that if they are, they should just be happy. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to old business, which is a discussion and review of our preliminary 2026 budget. For those of you who have been here before and been to our 2 workshops, thank you very much for sticking with us. It's been a long haul. We typically would have the township manager provide an overview of the township budget, what the board is considering tonight, how we got there. I do want, because again, this is very complicated, it's complicated for us. I want, for the public's benefit, to go through a couple items that I want Lori to explain, just to level set. And then obviously we'll open it up to discussion in the board. We'll open it up to discussion for the public. I will say that Schuylkill Township is very, very open and responsive to public comment. The Sunshine Act only provides that we provide an ability for the township residents to comment. We have been very liberal in this township, and unlike many other townships, we allow public comment and questions after almost every single agenda item. And so to the extent that you have new comments or questions about the budget, I encourage you to ask them. We don't have a full house tonight, so I think we can be a little bit more liberal with time. I was concerned that we might have a packed house and have to restrict time, but I think that we're going to be good tonight. Hopefully we won't be here until midnight. But Lori, for the benefit of the public, I'd like you to explain how the budget was. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
They are up
Would you
here.
like to take that?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Carolyn, would you want to?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to
Thank you.
conscript you. Okay. So Lori, just for the benefit of the public, could you explain how the budget was prepared? And I just want you to maybe give an idea. We've talked about 5-year projections, 1-year projections, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yep. Every year I take last year's budget, and that's the baseline. So I start with the numbers from the year prior, and I build the budget for what we're anticipating for the following year. In addition to that, every department head, every committee, commission, everyone our consultants, I get requests for budgetary items for the following year. In the first draft of the budget, barring there being anything wild, like somebody asking me, the police department wants an in-ground swimming pool. Barring there being something wild, I build everything into the first draft. So I take everybody's requests and they all get put into the first draft so that we can see what our starting point is. And that's what gets presented to the board. That's what was presented to the board, was that version at our first budget meeting, which was back in October on the 23rd. So it's always a very, very high number that is scary to everybody. That's always where we start.
Okay.
And then from there, the board gives feedback through the review. Those of you who were here for that first meeting know that we simply made it through the initial review of all of the line items, and we were here until midnight doing it that night. So that's always the first pass. From there, we refine it. We take things out, we discuss it, and then I make whatever changes the board asks me to make throughout that process. But it is a one-year budget, to your point.
Did we ask you to provide a 5-year budget?
No.
Have we ever asked you to provide a 5-year budget?
No.
What would it take for you to provide a 5-year budget?
I could certainly do a 5-year budget projection of the entirety of the township budget. It would take me some time, so I would need, advance notice. I start working on the budget, the first draft, midway through the year is when I start really kind of thinking about talking to the department heads, looking at where we're at that point of the year. So it's usually about June. Requests are due to me by the end of August from department heads, from committees, commissions. So I would really need to know, ideally by May, if I were being asked to project a 5-year budget. Now, you would still just adopt a 1-year. You don't adopt the 5 years. So that would really just be for planning purposes and discussion purposes.
Okay. So the next board that's going to take office in January should ask you by May if they want. Okay. Now, with the understanding that we have a 1-year budget to consider, at our last meeting, we had 3 budgets proposals. Have you ever had to do 3 budgets before?
That was a first for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you please, for the purposes of educating the board as well as the audience, what the difference was between those 3 proposals?
Yes. Let me explain why I did that. We were discussing, again, as we looked at the initial draft of the budget, it became very clear that there was a very large deficit if it was the board's desire to fund everything that everybody was asking for, we needed to have some options of how that was going to be accomplished. So that is the reason that I prepared 3 different versions. The bulk of the request that was included in the first budget was about approaching $1 million from the fire department between their operating costs and their capital requests and a new line item that they were requesting for EMS that we have traditionally not funded here before. So I was trying to present options for the board's consideration as a starting point for the discussion so that the board could look at how, if you want to fund all of it, how can you do it? So the 3 options that were presented to the board at the last workshop meeting, or at the last budget hearing, I should say. One option was with everything hold on, I have to pull my notes because it's complicated having multiple versions. One version was with everybody's requests included in it and no tax increase. So that was the budget that was presented at the first meeting. So that's the high one with everybody gets what they want. Version 2 of that working budget was the police department had asked for 2 additional police officers. I backed that request out in the second version, but added in everything that the fire and EMS had asked for, but theirs was in the form of a separate fire and EMS tax. So I called that out as a separate revenue in a separate fund, and that eliminated it from the general fund. And then in the third version, I said, all right, let's see what the budget would look like if we do not include the 2 additional police officers, but the board does want to fund everything that the fire and EMS wanted to have asked for, but we do not want to do a tax increase. That was what the third version looked at. So we looked at everything everybody wants. So, pie in the sky, everything everybody wants, no change to the tax. And then we looked at, okay, no additional staffing added into the police department with the fire and EMS tax to carve out a separate revenue source for those operations. And then we also looked at, okay, still no police, but we don't want to do a tax, but we want to give fire and EMS all the money. So those were the three options that were presented.
And again, if you had this in your notes, there was a deficit, budget deficit associated with each one of those options. Do you have that?
That's correct. Yes, with the first version, with everything in there, no tax increase, so 2 additional police officers, full funding of fire and EMS, the deficit was over $1 million. So $1 million, 16,000, 1 million. In the second version, and that's what you have in front of you tonight, it's still showing a deficit of about $47,000. In the third version, and that again is no 2 additional police officers, but full funding of fire and EMS, no separate tax, that's a deficit of $893,000.
Last, there's discussion about the municipal fund. I want to ask you, did the contributions to the municipal fund in 2026 increase versus prior years
No,
in this budget, in the proposed budget?
no, it's 130,000, which is what it was budgeted for in 2025.
How long has it been budgeted for 130,000?
We
At
started it in
least-
2011.
Yeah.
How much
Yeah.
of that does it take to actually maintain?
No.
Never mind. It's like it costs
Which-
money to actually
Which
maintain.
option do we have in front of us tonight? Which option did the board direct you to move forward with for discussion tonight?
Version 2, and version 2 was the one without the addition of the 2 police officers, but with the full funding of fire and EMS through a separate fire and EMS tax.
Full funding of fire and
Well,
EMS?
no, it's 1 mil of funding. Thank you. It gets them close, but not to 100% of what they asked for.
Sorry, Tom. Thank you. That was
But it-
educational
yeah.
and helpful for me. I hope it was helpful for all of you.
There are some new faces here tonight, I think, so.
Yes. So we will have discussion, but I'm going to make a motion. Well, should we have discussion? We should have
Amongst the
discussion
board.
first. So we're gonna have discussion amongst the board. We open it up for discussion.
And there were some minor changes that I made so I can review that.
Do you
from
want to
the last-
review that first?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yes, review that first. So we're at option 2, and Lori's made some changes from the option 2 that we looked at last.
Yeah, correct.
Thursday.
Very, very minor changes from the last meeting, just a couple of administrative things. There was one, QuickBooks charges us more for additional funds, so I had to increase that a little bit with the 2. We have to create 2 additional separate funds for the fire and EMS tax, so I had to increase the cost of QuickBooks just slightly for that. Very minimal. Based on the feedback from the board at the last meeting on the Historic Commission's budget, I put the full amount into the budget for the Mid-Century Modern project, and I also built that in for 50% as a potential grant. So that was also changed in here. And on a substantive level, I believe that those were the only amendments that were made between the last meeting and this one, except for formatting, and I cleaned up some of the line items in the funds.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions and discussions from the board.
I think we've discussed this plenty, and I think you've done everything that we've asked. Thank you.
So I have to apologize. When we looked at these on the computer the other day without a printout, it was hard to figure everything out. It's much easier now with a paper in front of me. I do have a question with one of the options that you showed us, number 3. And again, I need some help understanding this. I see in the beginning balance for the Valley Forge Fire Company, we have $809,000 sitting for them. We show receipts coming in to that fund of $420. Is that coming out of? Help me understand that.
Which page
This
are
is
you on?
number
The fund balance?
option 3.
Option 3, fund balance. Are you, you're looking at their capital reserve fund?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm sorry, can you, what was?
So we show 809 balance at the end of this year that's
Yep.
sitting there for their capital expenditures, fire
Correct.
trucks, that sort of thing.
Yep.
We show receipts in 26 of 420,000. That's based on not, go ahead.
Option 3, yes, correct. That assumes, you know what, that page. Yeah. So in option 3, there's no tax increase included. So that 400,000 is a transfer from the general fund. So that's a deposit from the general fund into the capital reserve fund because they asked for 400,000. And then they requested to spend 400,000 in 2026. So there's a net fund balance change in 26 of $20,000. And that accounts for interest.
Okay.
That sheet, I didn't update when I prepared all of the options because you can ignore the special revenue funds above that because those don't really exist in that version.
So for anybody that wasn't here for the budget meetings, again, not having this printed out, it was very hard. And I know the public didn't have a copy of this. So it's something we can maybe work on next year to give you a clear picture of all the options we're reviewing, if that's okay. I don't know.
I actually think that's a great idea, Bob. And, you know, at the end of every business meeting, Lori has asked the board for suggestions on topics for workshops. And never once have we asked her to have a mid-fiscal year budget workshop. And we certainly could do that next year.
Great. One of the questions I have now that I brought up in the last meeting, but I'm looking at the beginning balance. And one of the things that I researched a little bit after that meeting was the reason that it's as high as it is a little concerning to me. I know that there's a few different views on this, but I did some research, and it under the PSATs, which is the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, that points townships toward the GFOA, and you can tell me what that means. General
Government Finance Officers and Administration, I think.
Okay. When it comes to maintaining a prudent reserve, it says keep a reserve equal or roughly to 2 months of operating expenditures, which comes out to about 15 to 20% of the annual general fund. Can you explain that to me and why we have more than 15 to 20%? A lot of people have been asking me, and I want to make sure everybody knows.
Yeah, I can actually. That's because this township has never adopted a formal fund balance policy. So we don't have a benchmark of an amount.
Can I make a comment? Back in 2011, when I started as a supervisor and we wanted to create a rainy day fund, we actually started with the municipal complex fund. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. The Cap Roads Fund, as well as our general fund. In our general
Those
fund.
funds didn't exist prior to you becoming a supervisor?
No.
Okay.
It had the Cap Roads Fund had less than $300,000 in it. The Municipal Complex Fund had about $50,000 in it, and the General Fund had about $100,000 in it. And the board at the time said, we want to pump these up and we want to have a nice reserve. And when we looked into it at the time, yes, the GFOA suggested the 2 months, but they said you don't have to limit yourself to that. You can do as much as you want, especially if you allocate it into special funds that cannot be returned to the general fund. So like the Municipal Complex Fund and the Cap Roads Fund.
Yes.
As well as our fire fund. So we just kept putting money into it as much as we possibly could because the board at the time wanted to have a year's worth of reserves, not just in the general fund, but in the cap roads, and the municipal complex fund.
So,
So I hope
So-
that answers.
so to piggyback on that, the municipal complex fund is close to $2.5 million, with expenditures of about $290,000 this year. That's about 9 times above what our spend is. So we're at 87% over our expenditures in our general fund, and about 900% over what our spend is for the municipal complex.
I believe the reason for that is because the municipal complex doesn't just address changing light bulbs and updating wiring, but it also addresses needed improvements like protections for police vehicles and other capital costs. We've been discussing, again, I don't think that this is the time and place to discuss the municipal fund the complex fund, because we're going to have another conversation about that, and that's not in the 2026 budget. But you would expect it to have a more significant amount of money in it for capital improvements.
I agree we need money for the improvements. Usually you have that listed as what they are, right? But if you have a fund building for a specific cause, it calls out what those projects are that are allocated. Am I out of line?
In, where are you referring?
Well, if you have a dedicated fund that's assigned, wouldn't you normally have projects attached that require that money?
In the municipal complex,
I think if you're going to spend it, but if it's a savings account, I think you would list it out if you were ready to spend it. But if you weren't ready to spend it, you wouldn't have a list of what it would go.
I guess.
Am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Well, I guess let's put it in the context. We've always had a capital fund for fire. We don't necessarily list every single, piece of firefighting apparatus. You do want to give the fire department flexibility as to what their future capital needs are going to be. So I don't think, again, I'm not an accountant, I'm
Right.
a lawyer, but I think that there's a certain degree of flexibility that needs to be built into the capital accounts. I wouldn't want to be too prescriptive as to what Valley Forge Fire Department can use in their capital fund.
I think we asked them specifically for that,
Well,
for the projection, and they do list it for us.
no actual purchases can be made without board approval.
Correct.
So the money that's put in those savings accounts can't be spent without explicit board approval.
My question is this: if we're building up money, I get in the unassigned, we don't have to list exactly what that's for, and I think it even calls it out in the bottom. Amounts are available for any purpose.
Mm-hmm.
These amounts are reported only in the general fund, but then it says for restricted balance, amounts constrained for specific purposes by their providers, such as grantors, better, it goes on and on. But I thought that was supposed to have something specific attached for the purpose that we're saving it for, to show what that
I think
what
the
that
only
is.
purpose would be for a capital purchase. Like, we can't use that to pay for
But
Lori's salary
That's
or
That's my point. Do we have to list what those capital purposes are, what we're saving specifically for?
No, you
No.
don't.
Okay.
no.
Nor would you necessarily want to, because the part of the purpose of that is to kind of think of these like savings accounts, and you're hedging against future risk. So there's potential risk, for example, that a fire truck could break down tomorrow and they're going to need something else right away.
Shh, don't wish that.
Okay. Something we don't have, that a sewer pipe can burst tomorrow that you're not going to account for, that you're going to need to address right away. Instead of having to borrow the money where then you're paying interest on that, if you have the money allocated in a cap reserve account for the sewer fund, then you could then spend it on that purpose. You do want some flexibility to be able to shift that money within that for any kind of particular need you have.
That's the same way that we handle the cap roads fund. We don't designate specifically what each road project you're necessarily going to do. We try to create a guide. Same thing as the open space fund. That money is there for a purpose, but we don't have a specific, when we budget, we're going to use it for X property, or because you don't know what's going to come up that year.
And one illustration I think we have is that
Under your mic.
one illustration we have is the capital roads fund. You could say, oh, it's at, at X many, but we're reducing it by nearly $1 million this year just in the fund balance because we have exceptional needs that aren't annual, but they can accumulate and happen at any point where we actually need to expend that. And we're planning to reduce that fund by almost half of it. And in doing that, we'll have to build that fund back up because if we have another year like that, we'll deplete that account. And this is good fiscal management of a township, in my opinion, as well as if that account goes down, would we be able to allocate some of that reserve in the general fund to then move into that account?
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And a large part of the expenditures in the capital fund, we've got the sidewalk project coming out of there now. We are, because I do know that it does appear as though we are spending a ton out of the capital roads fund next year. And that is because we have some larger scale projects going on and paving is getting more expensive. And we've got some stormwater projects that we're hoping to get. Now, you'll see those recorded as well. We've applied for some grant funding for those, which I covered at the first workshop. So we're hoping to recoup some of that money for those projects.
has the board talked about in the past creating a general fund reserve policy?
Not since I've been here, no, but that is something that I actually have a draft that I would like us to address. And my intent was to have that discussion in December. The reason being, we generally handle, we've not discussed, since I've been here, I've not been asked to prepare a formal fund balance policy. But because we have our bond rating now, that is something that has been targeted on my list to do. So now is a good time to do it. We'll do that at the end of the year. At the end of every year, the board does make a vote and a decision and passes a resolution telling me where to put any unencumbered fund balance that we have at the end of the year. So while we haven't had a formal general fund balance policy, the board has in practice been carrying that out by resolution because come December, I show you where we're at that time of the year and you give me the authority to move any unencumbered monies into whatever accounts that the board designates that I do. And in the years that I've been here, the priority for those end of year transfers have been in the Capital Roads Fund and the Municipal Complex Fund. In fact, at the end of last year, the board authorized me to make a larger than usual deposit into the Municipal Complex Fund because of the project that we have going on.
So, quick question. In the on all the line items, it shows the actual spend of the last 5 years, 21 through 25. Did we have a deficit in those years or a surplus? And can that be added into this chart in the future so we can see what our projection was and what our actual spend was?
You want to know each of those years where we ended the year?
What we budgeted or predicted we'd have and what the actual was see if there was an overage or
be
deficit or a surplus.
At the very bottom of the first page on each year, it captures the totals.
Of what was budgeted?
Yep.
And what we came in at?
Budgeted against receipts, yeah.
I'm going to need some help on this again. I'm not an accountant. So that's the first page.
Yep, first
General
page.
fund receipts.
Well, first fund. So you're going to want to look at the general fund revenues. Total general fund receipts. I don't know what page that will be for you.
Which one are you looking at, Bob?
Well, I'm looking at version 3. It'll be on all the versions, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
Now I can. You
have
have
version
version
two.
2.
You have version 2 because that's the version that we
Voted.
we didn't vote. We gave direction. We didn't vote. We gave direction to Lori to propose for decision tonight.
So I'm sorry, Lori, where does it show what was budgeted and what we actually spent?
In each category, it shows what was. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's only going to show the actuals. I would have to
Yeah.
run a report for you for that.
On average, over the last 4 years, do we run a deficit or a surplus? Do you know?
Maybe to last year, just last year. So
Yeah.
I would have. I don't want to. I would feel more comfortable pulling a report to give you that information. I can tell you that last year we ended the year with the surplus. To go back 5 years, I would prefer to pull a report from our prior accounting system to be able to give you that information. I don't want to say
Bob, I
anything
can tell
incorrect.
you that this going back goes back to 2020. We did not run a deficit from 2020
Yeah.
to 2025.
Since I've
There
been here,
was
there's
one-
not been a year.
There
that
was
we've had a
one
deficit.
year,
2021.
2014, Mark? Can you help me out? 2015? We had 1 year where we had a deficit. But was it 2015 or 16? But it was like $100,000 deficit.
I can pull it for the next meeting, but I can tell you since I've been here, we have made a year end. The board has authorized at the end of each year that I've been here to transfer budgetary surplus into other funds, which tells me that we've not had a deficit in any of the years that I've been here.
That's correct.
So we budget for worst case,
Yes.
Yes,
and if we're fortunate, we have a surplus.
correct.
And the 1 year where we had a deficit, we did not have a township manager, we did not have a controller, and I think we actually did really well with only a deficit of about $100,000 because of that.
Yeah. Now, what I can tell you is that in our 2025 budget, the 2025 budget was adopted with a $491,000 deficit. So that means it's less likely that when this year ends that we will have a surplus. And I think I mentioned at the last budget meeting that our EIT numbers have not been coming in as strongly as I would be expecting at this time of the year.
EIT is earned income tax.
So that's something that I'm keeping an eye on because we had this discussion when the 2025 budget was adopted. It's okay to adopt a budget showing a deficit and presuming that you're going to use a carryover, and that carryover would be us using our general fund reserve to balance the budget. So that's what we're showing here in 2025. That's the largest. That is the highest number of a carryover that has been adopted in the budget since I've been here as well. So that was the discussion that we had last year, that, you know, we may not have a surplus at the end of the year, and we're gonna have to revisit this again when it comes to the 2026 budget to see what we're gonna do.
So just to be clear, we approved a budget last year that had a deficit. We actually ended in
We
a
did.
surplus.
We hope.
Well, I don't know yet.
Okay.
We're not done yet. It's not
Well,
December
so-
yet.
Let's pray for no snow.
Correct me, I don't think we approved a budget with a deficit. We approved a budget with an
With carry.
interfund
An interfund
transfer
transfer.
to use our
Right.
To cover.
accumulated balance.
Right.
Cover it
To
up.
cover it, yes.
The other thing to keep in mind, with, you know, municipalities are like we're a business. We've got revenues and expenses. The one other thing to keep in mind is the timing of our revenues. So we generally do not get revenue for Q1 of each year. So so as a bare minimum, you need that 25%, because if you don't have money to pay anyone's salaries for the first 3 months, and you got to take out loans to do that. That's one of the reasons why it's important to carry an unrestricted surplus, because if you don't and you run into any kind of problem in that first 3 months, then you're really
We have no option.
in deep.
Especially a snowy first
Yeah.
3 months.
And that was part of,
Yeah.
that was something that we benefited from last year. We didn't have much snow, but that, you know, that can change.
Well, that would speak to the capital roads and reserve fund for snow.
It comes out of cap roads and liquid fuels and the general fund.
So Lori, I noticed in this version, at the funds at the end for the cap roads, the end balance was like 1.5. I know at one point we spoke with Nick and he had said 1 million was enough. And then just before he left, he came back and said, I don't know that 1 million's enough.
It's
So,
I mean, you can see how.
but he never said how much.
I don't know that. I can look at that because truthfully, we should have a fund balance policy for the rest of our,
Right.
not just our general funds. So
Right.
That's something that I'm looking at.
So again, like I said, this was back in 2011. He
Yeah.
said ideally we'd like $1 million.
Yeah, that's definitely a good cushion, but you see how the
Yes.
costs are going up. So it would probably be wise to target a higher number.
And I think finding out what that higher number is would help with your policy.
We can set a fund reserve policy for each fund, just like
Yeah.
we do, just
I
like we
think
do the
that's
general
good.
fund.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This may be a little bit premature, but since you're going to be proposing for our consideration a general fund balance for the next meeting, you mentioned, and I forget the acronym,
GFOA.
GFOA, General Administrative.
Governmental finance.
Okay, I'm way off.
Yes.
Okay. Are there other, organizations or best practices that you look towards in creating that, or is it generally?
They're the one that everybody points to. That's why
Okay.
PSATs refers to them. They're kind of the gold standard. That's who you go to for that. However, the township also has a financial advisor that we work with and a CPA. So they would also be
Okay.
people that I would work with.
Okay.
Does DCED, or is that part of the GFOA?
DCED may have guidelines. They probably do have guidelines for. I don't know.
They may.
They might have some sort of handbook out there that probably references GFOA.
Yeah, DCD may. I know DCD has like an intervention program for municipalities that are
in trouble.
approaching distress, which we're not anywhere near.
Mhm.
No,
And they may have guidelines that go along with that, but
those would be like
those are
bare
kind
minimum.
of bare bones. You're really in trouble. What do you have to do to cut to the bone?
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Or do we want to open it up to comments and question of the public?
Can I just know a process question? So tonight, the only motion is not to approve the budget, but just to approve the notice that we have to put in the newspaper that the budget's available for the officially public comment review for a period of 20 days. We would then adopt it at our December meeting. The way that the second class township code works, we can make changes to the budget after tonight's meeting as long as we don't increase revenues or increase expenses by more than 10% in the aggregate or 25% in any individual category. That's just increase. If you're going to decrease any of those items, then you can certainly do that without needing to re-notice, re-advertise. But if you're going to, if you're choosing between the three options and you want to keep all of your options open, and this one goes the highest in terms of revenues, the highest in terms of expenses, you'd want to do that just to give yourself the maximum flexibility to go lower for each or go at that level for each.
So I'm just doing some quick math here. Again, I'm looking at option 3, and I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this. I'm a little slower on the math thing. So if I calculated correctly, our beginning balance is about 87% of what our expenditures, well, that was based. Well, I'll back up to this. If we look at number 3 and our end balance at 5.796 million, divide that into our expenditures, we would end the year with about 67% of our receipts having that as a surplus or the general fund balance. My question is, if the best practice says, and Mike, you say 25% as a minimum, that's about 2.164 million. So we're about 3.6 million higher than what best practice recommends.
Can I make a point that I don't believe that when they say a minimum of 2 months or 3 months is a best practice? As someone who comes from the investment and finance industry, a certified financial analyst, somebody who actually takes and advises people about this, I would never say that for your own welfare, we would have only 3 months saved. Paycheck to paycheck hurts people. paycheck to paycheck for townships would hurt even worse. And what we would have as a minimum should be no less than 3 months. And
Well,
we would build on no less to have any variances in revenue or expenses, potential outlays, or if we have an impact on our bond rating for some reason, and all of a sudden our interest rates skyrocket.
And we would face a potential impact on our bond rating. So I spoke to our financial advisor about this because I've been working on developing a general fund balance policy. Now it hasn't been presented to you yet, but he suggested that we should target no less than 40%. So that would be what I would recommend. And there are reasons for that. But highest among them is we don't want to impact our bond rating. We need to maintain that AA plus credit rating, or we're going to be faced with our payments being more expensive.
but a big part of our adjustments could be made into capital projects that wouldn't, or capital expenses like the fire that wouldn't impact our bond rating. Is that right?
There's a difference, yeah, and I think, and we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting. There is a difference between using your unassigned fund balance to cover your deficit for your general operating expenses. That's viewed differently than if the board were to strategize and say, okay, we target 40% as our general fund reserve, and we have more than that. So we would like to make a policy decision to take some of that excess and put it into capital projects. That's seen as managing your debt versus spending down your rainy day fund to cover your expenses.
So Lori, at this hypothetical mid-year budget meeting that we could have next year, that's something that we could discuss as a board as to whether, again, once we adopt a reserve policy, what we would do with the funds that might no longer be tied up in the reserve.
Sure, yeah.
I guess my question is, if we went from 87% down to 67%, still had a buffer well above 40%, should we consider that?
As long as
First.
the reserve isn't going to pay to fulfill the carryover.
Can we navigate that in a way that won't impact the bond rating?
If you wanted to make a fund transfer of,
Yeah, to say, cover some of the other capital expenses that we have listed.
Sure.
Now or after we adopt a policy?
Well, can we do that now with a budget to say, we know we want to target at least 40%. If we went with option 3 without a tax increase, we went from 87% of our expenditures down to 67% in our general fund, knowing that we're still well above the 40%. Can that be done and allocate the money in a way that wouldn't impact our bond rating?
But that would only help temporarily. It would only temporarily help the fire company.
But I think it would do.
The number 2 version would come up with a permanent solution for their funding issues. But I think you're right. I think next month, because we can only make those transfers from the general fund into the other 2 funds in December. Isn't that correct?
yeah, we can't do.
You can't do them in the first 3 months of the year.
Correct.
So, for example,
Okay, so what we could do is we could in December take some of those funds, just like you're suggesting, and give it, and I'm just going to say this off the top of my head. I'm not saying we're going to do it, but we could transfer some of those funds to the fire company. It would not hurt our bond rating.
Correct.
It would help the fire company with any deficits that the tax increase would not cover. And you're right, Bob, it would lower the general fund, reserve fund, and put it into a capital fund.
Well, one of the
That makes sense.
one of the things I'm looking at is that, and
Just
again,
depends on the
correct me if I'm wrong, but for years we were allocating a certain amount of money to the fire company. There haven't been needs. We haven't moved as much in as we might have if they needed trucks. Now they're needed back to back. Knowing that those expenses are coming, if we shifted, knowing we'd have a balance change of $887,000 but not have to have a tax increase, in December, we could transfer that money over to them? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, one of the
If we
things,
didn't increase our taxes and still have 67% of a buffer?
if we take this out of the budget, it will not be in the budget next year. That means that capital that we would have given them in the budget will not be there next year for them, and we will have to raise taxes next year in a greater fashion potentially.
Maybe not, because if
Well,
we have
again,
67%,
if you take
we're
it
targeting.
out of the budget and we reduce that and we have an emergency that further draws that down, we're all of a sudden at 40% at the threshold, and we are risking our bond rating, fiscal
Well,
discipline. If it
Good.
comes down to 30,
To state this differently, great, next year we're at 67%, we haven't raised taxes. What do we do the year after that? Then we're at 40%, no tax raise. What do we do the year after that? Then we're at 20% and no tax raise. You're kicking the can down the road. It's not a long-term strategy by any
That
means.
was my point. Exactly, John. That's exactly my point by saying that this is a permanent solution for the fire company.
I just think.
Now, to
have
agree with you,
the
Will,
fire trucks they need, though. We're not talking about something that's going on year after year after year. There's a deficit right now. A lot of it's caused by fire equipment. We need to allocate the money for that. That disappears after a while. That's why I want to talk about a 5-year plan, because we're making quick decisions without really looking at the long-term analysis of funds needed.
you asked a question about to our fire department. Let's have them respond.
Well, I mean, we are still discussing amongst ourselves, but I think that you're the subject matter expert. So, can you, do you want to,
concern-
for the minutes?
Evan Taylor, Fire Chief, Valley Forge Fire Company.
I'm sorry.
Our concern,
Makes a great cup of coffee.
the immediate concern that we have is, and again, we appreciate the support. I don't want to think for a second that we're unappreciative of anything. The concern is there's $800,000 in the capital account currently. We will deplete that in the next 2 to 3 years with the purchase of the new apparatus, and then there's no reserve. And then we'd have to build back up within the next 3 to 5 years to something that makes sense. And I think that speaks to Bob's point that he's looking at, hey, how do we give a little bit of reserve to that? That's our concern.
And that's exactly the point that I was making, that we can only do that in December. So this is actually the perfect time of year for us to have this discussion, so that when we can lower the general fund, reserve fund, and put some of that towards you. And I'm just using it as an example.
Our rainy day. Correct.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that this is a decision that we're going to make, but this is something that we can do to help with what your situation is.
Because
And it wouldn't lower our bond rating, and we would be in a situation where we're actually helping you and lowering the general fund, reserve fund.
So that's
You can
exactly
call
my
it
point.
something
that-
else.
that
Well,
if-
you don't, I mean, you don't have to lower the general fund reserve fund, but you're making a decision
Yes.
to use the funds that you have for a specific
Well,
purpose that
And just
you've
if I
identified.
could add, for those who weren't at the meeting last time, the 1 mil in an EMS fire tax that we've been discussing does not cover the entirety of the fire department's ask, right? So I think it was about 260-ish.
Yep, that too, yeah.
Less.
Yes, correct.
Than what the request was. And it's not because the fire department did not substantiate their request. They provided an entire report. I think people appreciate the detail that the fire department put together. So I think what we're talking about is potentially an additional capital outlay. But again,
Yes.
we're not making a decision tonight on that. This is not, wasn't on the agenda to discuss, but.
Tom Fortman, president of the fire company. The other thing to remember is that when you work off a 1 mil tax like that and you divide it up into 3 areas, one for EMS and 2 areas for Valley Forge, one for operating and one for capital. As the operating costs go up each year, probably realistically is 4%, 5%. The savings in the capital account are going to go down because the pie doesn't get any bigger. So it's something to remember there as well.
So I guess my point is, if we have $6.68 million in our general fund, and we're at 87% of the expenditures, now I did that on the original sheet. I'm not sure exactly what that number is now. If we took it down to 65, 67%, and we put a 5-year plan together, and then we talked about a tax increase, I think that would be better than saying, let's do the tax increase and then do a 5-year plan. It's kind of backwards. I like, in my business, looking at 5 years, saying, here's my growth trajectory, here's my capital outlay, here's where I'm headed, and know well in advance of where we're going, rather than look at 1-year snapshot and say, wait, we might have a big deficit if we fund everything you need. But that even having that deficit, if we shift the money to capital, is still going to put us way above what the normal best practice for prudent reserve is.
But Bob, we've never had a 5-year plan, and when we enacted the open space taxes, we didn't have a 5-year plan, so that's never been a rationale for not funding the township properly before, because we didn't have a 5-year plan.
Well,
and we're not going to have a
exactly,
5-year plan tonight.
Exactly. We're not going to have it tonight, but we are going to do a tax increase without a 5-year plan. I think they could be done harmoniously.
I also think that an assumption that you just said before, which was revenue will go up. We cannot make an assumption revenue in our township will go up when we are a mainly developed township with not that many more properties that can be further developed to generate more tax.
What we don't know long-term is if we're going to hit the wall, or we can fund their needs, get the trucks behind us, and then level off. That's what
I'm
a
just
5-year
saying
plan
when
provides.
costs keep going up
I
at
don't-
a 4%, 5% per year across the board, our grocery bills go up, the costs for every part of the township go up, yet revenue is staying fairly consistent and going up at a much slower rate. At some point, you have to come up with the revenue. We can't just tap our general fund for it over time. As the president said, for the fire department, the capital funds will start going down as the operating costs go up, and that's going to be systematic over many years.
I think whether we do it this year or next year, the need is still there.
It may be still there, but I think if we project it out, we have a much better understanding of what the need is. We know there's a short-term need for
we
trucks.
know, yes, and this will help solve the short-term needs as well as the long-term needs. If you would like to have a 5-year projection, great. I can tell you right now, had the fire company given us this paperwork that we've been asking for 13 years, had they given this to us 7 years ago, I'm sure we would have had a tax increase 7 years ago for the fire company, but we only got it 13 years later.
I got to correct you on that. They did give us their projections of apparatus needs. We weren't happy with the other parts of how they were projecting their budget out.
Yeah, I understand
but we had an
that.
apparatus need.
I understand that.
For years now.
But putting in an EMS tax included all of those things, not just the capital. So that's why I'm saying if we had this 7 years ago from them, they would have been collecting it 7 years ago, but they didn't get it to us until today. So that's why we're having this conversation today. So I think it's in the best interest of the fire company, of our residents, and the fiscal state of our township to go ahead and start this now. And then, yes, take a look at this and do 5-year projections, but we can't do that now. I don't think it makes any sense.
I agree. We can't.
I think
agree. It's too late in the game.
if this is really what you wanted to have as part of our budget for this year, a 5-year plan, I think, like Lori said, you should have asked for this back in May.
If you told me back in May we were going to have a tax increase, we could have gotten in front of
You
it.
said to us back in January, oh, it looks like we're probably going to have to do an EMS tax.
Now, I'm not opposed to an EMS only tax.
That's
I think it's a good
exactly what
idea.
this is.
No, this is EMS plus another 0.88 on top of that. What was the EMS percentage? About $25 or I forget how much per household it was.
0.82 for fire and 0.18 for EMS.
So 0.18. It's a big difference from the full mill. I'm okay with 0.18. I think that's a good idea. I think the other townships are doing that as well, separating out the EMS.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's
I'm
what
sorry.
I said.
You know what? I
He's
think
parsing a difference between funding the fire department and funding the West End EMS. Bob is raising the issue.
That's what I said back in January.
Okay, I'm using the wrong terminology. I apologize. when I say EMS, I'm talking about ambulance and fire. Am I using the
Yeah.
wrong terminology?
They're
What
two
should we be
separate-
calling?
They're two separate
taxes.
things.
So
I
what,
did
what
say
should we
that-
be calling
No,
this
no,
tax?
It's
So
fire and
fire and
EMS,
EMS,
but
okay.
you have to specify, and because the budget
Okay.
request for West End was a certain amount, Lori, you have to allocate the 1 mil between the two.
Just to be
And
clear.
and I understand that, and that's my point. My point is that both our fire department and our ambulance need money, and they need it now. This will fund them now. If you want to project things out for 5 years, whether we do this tax increase today or tomorrow, it's not going to change anything.
Well, the fact that we have enough surplus in
Yeah.
the general fund means that we
But
easily
we
could do.
can't
Let me
use
finish,
that.
please.
We
Let
can't
me, please,
use
let
that
me finish.
for operating funds.
We just discussed that. We can use it for capital.
Right.
So my point is, if it can be done without impacting our bond rating, to be transferred over to capital, I would push this whole thing till next year. Create the 5-year
think-
plan. Let me finish, please, Martha. Create the 5-year plan. I think that's fiscally responsible. I agree if we need to have a 0.18 tax increase right now to fund EMS, which is a new expense that we've never had. That's what other townships are being asked to do, and they're doing it. I'm okay with that. But I think if we forego the rest of that tax increase and say, you know what, before we shoot from the hip and do something that might not be within the best practices of what's recommended from PSATs, I think we look at not having a tax increase, come back, put a 5-year plan together and say, do we need a tax increase? And if so, let's get out in front of it way in advance and tell the people, here's where we are, here's the trajectory, and here's why we're going to have a tax increase. We had a brief meeting, and within a couple hours of not forewarning the people, we said, hey, here it is, we're going to have a tax increase. You got a couple hours. We're going to vote on this in a couple days. That's not fair. We didn't even have these for them to look at. We gave it
We're
to them
not
the first
voting
meeting,
until
the second
December.
meeting, we didn't
We're
have,
not-
the public
we're
didn't
not
have
voting until
this
December.
paper to really understand it.
They have
Sorry,
20
John.
days. They have 20 days to review this. We're not voting tonight. We're proposing a draft, and we have 20 days for full feedback.
John, if I'm not mistaken, this basically sets the bar. We can adjust it minimally over the next 20 days,
Or we can re-advertise it.
or we can re-advertise it and go back to square one. Is that what you're
I
saying?
think that Mike
But
explained
that's
this
what Mike
before.
That's
that
why start now and say, yes, let's do it, and then let's back off. This is the time to decide before we vote on it what makes sense and get it done.
We can also, we can't.
You can
we
reduce,
can't
but you can increase.
Correct.
So
So we can reduce all we want between now
But
and.
you want your ceiling budget to be the one that we're advertising so that you can adjust. You can always adjust downward. You can adjust downward 100%, theoretically.
It'd be great if we could.
Good if you could.
can
But,
we change the tax increase?
You know, Bob, I
You
think
can
the math
eliminate
just
it.
We
doesn't work.
we can eliminate the tax
you can
increase?
eliminate the tax increase because you're reducing then revenue and expenses on both ends.
I'd like to hear what the public has to say when we're done, because I think when you're running this far over on your general fund and you can reduce it down and still be way over what's recommended for best practice, that we should really put the projections together, go into next year and let the public know where we really are so we can make an educated decision with a long-term plan. That's just good business.
So my one, I'm not the budget guy, right? I'm not the treasurer, but I handle a lot of municipalities. The one thing I would caution, two things I would caution against is just going with the minimum recommended, because like I said before, remember, your quarter one of next year, you're not taking in any money or very little money.
And that's where the 40% comes in. I'm saying
Yeah, but
15 to 20 is what's recommended, 25 if it's high risk, 3 months.
I've seen a lot of other places run into a lot of big problems where then they're coming to us and saying, hey, Mike, we need to do a tax anticipation note. And they're borrowing money for operating revenues for that year that they have to pay back in that year, which is a mess, and you want to avoid it. The other thing you want to avoid is, and I'm not saying that we're doing this, but I'm saying others have and they get caught with it, is no tax increase, there's been no tax increase for 10 years. And then all of a sudden it's a 60% tax increase or some kind of huge bump because no one was looking ahead. To your point with the 5-year plan out, I think everyone agrees with it. It's a good idea to start planning that out. But you do not want to get in a position where it's been, hey, we didn't do one last year, we didn't do one 10 years before. and now we're in trouble. We need to take a bunch of money out.
Okay, so we're, again, according to PSATs, 25 is the high water mark to not exceed. 40%, if we needed to do that, to say, let's have a full, 40%, even that still leaves us well above
Yeah.
what's
It's not a to
recommended
not
and gives
exceed,
us
though.
time to do the plan
It's a
and then
minimum.
say,
It's not a to not exceed. Yeah.
all right, well,
If you wanted to do the
Like,
stay
I
at the
think I-
minimum for the first,
have your microphone.
if we wanted to stay at that 40% minimum and still pay the bills for the first 3 months of the year, we would need the 25% on top of the 40% to maintain the minimum during that period.
well, you're gonna-
Otherwise, we'd be below, and again, that would drop it over average over the course of the
This
year.
is a great discussion for when we have a policy discussion on what the reserve fund should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But next month.
Yeah. I think I explained at the last meeting as well that I'm basing this off of our AA bond rating. If our rating were AAA, the recommendation would be a 100% fund balance. And if you,
And that would save our township money by interest costs.
Although
yes,
it's,
and
So let me-
borrowing capacity.
how many bonds do we have right now the open space bond is based on a AA.
Correct.
Do we have other bonds that we're looking to execute in the next year?
I don't have anything planned for that at this time, but when we had Jamie come in from PFM to present about the municipal complex, that was what he explained. He was giving the board options for potential funding sources for the municipal complex.
And also, we don't know what's going to happen with Segley after a master plan. So giving us flexibility with better credit terms is important for also future planning and due diligence in a financial
And
aspect.
I'm not
Sedgley comes out of the
suggesting,
open space fund though, correct?
It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. In fact, I think I brought this up at our last budget meeting. That seems like a year ago. It was Thursday.
it does feel like a year ago. Yeah.
Our municipal complex fund, when we needed to find money for Valley Park. I know I keep bringing up Valley Park, and I'm sorry. When we were looking for money to fund the construction of Valley Park, we were going to take that money out of the municipal complex fund. It does not have to come out of the open space fund. The reason why we were originally going to do that was because we were not allowed to take money out of open space
At that time, we couldn't.
at that time, we
Yeah.
couldn't.
The laws
But by
changed.
the time construction came around, we could, and the board made the decision to take it out of that fund.
Well, that would
So
normally
you
be
don't
where you
have
draw it
to,
from.
but you can.
But
what was
that's
that?
That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
first choice, is to draw it out of the open space fund, which, based
Well, I
on
don't
this.
know that it's a first choice
And also,
or
but one
not.
of the things is if we want to have the opportunity to do easements or fee simple purchases on other open space properties, the way our township voted to do we want to deplete that if we have a large expense to develop Segley after a master plan?
Just so everybody knows, it's pretty depleted. If we score the properties that we're working on now, next year, it'd be down to about 2.2 million, 2.28, I think it is.
And then that
So-
backs up the point where if you want to maintain that flexibility with open space and the master plan comes back and says it's going to be $3 million to develop the property for the benefit of the town people, so we actually have a working park with a trail that you can walk on or anything. It's a off-road park for vehicles. Who knows what it's going to be? I can't prescribe what it'll be. I'm just saying whatever the master
Please.
plan says, if it's an amount, where's that money going to come from?
okay,
I-
none of
I'd like-
this is in the
I'm
budget
done.
for
No.
next
Yeah.
year. Can we
Let's-
just
No.
stick with the budget for next year? I don't want to have
Yeah.
to call a vote, but I mean, at some
No,
point,
my-
we have to stop discussion, allow the public to provide input, and then I would call a vote. Because
All
we're
right.
treading the same conversation over and over again. It's not respectful for our staff. We need to have our piece, have everyone's voice heard, but at the end of the day, it's a representative democracy, and we have a vote
All right, I'd
about publishing and advertising a preliminary budget
I'd love to hear
that
what
will
the
be
public
later
has to
voted
say.
on. So are we all agree that we can let the public provide
Yes.
comment and questions?
Go for it.
Thank you. Would anyone in the public like to provide comment and questions? And if you do, please come up to the microphone. Please give your name and your address so we can make sure that we reflect it appropriately and accurately in the minutes.
Good evening, John Moranis on Meadowbrook Lane. Let the public know, when was the last increase we had for the township in real estate in the taxes?
2019.
2019. So for the last 6 years, going on 6 years, we've had no tax increase.
Correct.
And as we talk about this all the time, reserve funds are necessary. And at that time, what was the percentage increase for us?
0.03 mils.
Thank you.
Which would
Two-
equate to how
2.7 to
much?
3.
Andrew,
I'm sorry, John.
It went from 2.7 to a total of 3.
what
Yeah.
percentage would that
Correct.
be? 11% increase. That was 6 years ago. We haven't had an increase in real estate taxes at this township. Now, with the 2 additional taxes, one for the fire company and one for the EMS, the percentage would be increased by, again, if we
1
went
mil.
through the extreme, but the percentage from what we have currently.
33%.
That's where I think there was a misconception when I think somebody did something a couple weeks ago. But
Someone
again,
put out flyers talking
Correct.
about
Yeah,
the
it's a
tax increase.
33% of what
But
we
look at-
control for the millage. That's
okay,
accurate.
But look at what the increase would be from household. We have about, 8,000 residents in this township, approximately? Look at what that would be as an increase per person. Very minimal. We have 3 taxes in this area. School tax, township tax, and county tax. And right now, the township tax is the lesser of the 3.
Absolutely.
If people are concerned about tax increases, go to the school board. You've heard me before. I appreciate, going through the school board, hearing back and forth last meeting, which was last year? On Thursday, wasn't it? Last year?
Last year.
Okay.
See, a century ago.
A century ago. There is a lot of give and take. We're hearing the same thing over and over again. 6 years ago from a tax increase, it's expected, should be. We shouldn't stop just having a tax increase every 6 years. You're going to get that point where in 6 years, we're going to have a 20% or a 30%, and which is what we're seeing right now, 30% increase if you just go by the percentage. If we had an increase every year, it wouldn't matter. But people who are moving in this township, hearing a 30% increase, well, gosh, that's a lot. 6 years without a tax increase. It's due. Everything's going up. Revenue's not going to go up that great. We don't have the people that live here are increasing tremendously, but expenses are going up tremendously. So go with it. That's all I can say. Thank you.
So I just want to say one thing to that. Going back many years ago, a fellow named Bill Gladden campaigned with us around this township. He was, I guess, the director of open space, and he brought with him different studies from, I think it was Penn State and a couple other places to say, hey, if you pay 0.25% of your earned income to go toward open space, you're going to stop the density and the sprawl. That has a positive long-term impact in your overhead to operate a township. The people paid that. And we're delivering on it because we haven't had a major development since the open space started. We bought down every property that was about to be developed. It's been very successful. I think that's important to consider, that we've capped our sprawl, and that, as a result, and Bill's pitch was, hey, you're going to cap your growth of all the other resources needed to maintain that sprawl for roads, for township services, emergency services, police. Doesn't stop it, but it definitely helps a lot. And we paid for that already.
I will just argue again, one thing that he probably omitted to say is that just the general cost of maintenance goes up annually by the rate of inflation. And due to that, if you don't have that rate of inflation incorporated into your tax rate, costs will go up. And if you've capped the development, so have the new real estate taxes from new sources, which means that's great with open space. But now you don't have the revenue to start paying the inflation
Actually,
costs.
that was part of the study.
I'm actually okay with that. Yeah.
Is that every house is actually a negative. Every new home is actually a negative to our taxes, and that has paid off.
I'd much rather have the open space. I agree with
I agree also, but I'm just
Okay.
making the point.
Nobody is saying anything bad about open space. We all love open space.
One other-
John, would you like to make another
John
comment?
Mrazek, one other item. It hasn't been discussed, and it was already passed to next year, about the 2 police officers that the department would like to have. So if you have to add, or if you don't have a tax increase this year, and you're postponing this 5-year study that has been talked about at the last meeting for 2 police officers, what is your tax increase going to be next year? 60%? So think about that. You're postponing something to the following year, hoping to get a 5-year plan out there. We could always, think about what's going to cost in 5 years. 5-year plans are great, but there's too many other variables. Expenses are going up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Thank you again.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Please make sure to give your name and your address for the minutes.
Mark Donovan, 26 Flintlock Lane.
26 Flintlock Lane, in case you didn't know what it was.
Mark, speak into the microphone so that John can hear you.
Hi, Mark Donovan, 26 Flintlock Lane. Yes, you all know me. Thank you. So I would just make a comment on real estate taxes and how they change year over year. We do not have a reassessment annually in the county. So real estate taxes do not increase with inflation. Please take note of that when you consider increasing millage, because when you increase the millage, it helps you keep up as a township on revenues that the county does not help us keep up with. This is something that we see in Bucks County, where they're actually hitting the millage maximums because they haven't increased their assessments since 1972. Here we have 1990 something or other. It's a little more doable, but you get up to the maximum millage rates and all of a sudden there's nowhere else to find funding. But I would say regular millage increases can be expected even if your expenses remain flat, because your receipts year over year are not going to increase with inflation because, like I said, assessments are not keeping pace with it.
So I got to ask you a question on that. I'm just curious. When a house sells and the county sees that, hey, we had it rated for this, but it sold it to this at this mark, does that increase the tax bill for that new owner from what the old one was paying?
Shouldn't be, but nominal. They might notice there's a shed there. They might notice there was an addition or something that didn't get captured or something.
But if the house was valued at $1 million in the county's eyes and it sells for $2 million,
it's property versus house, just like Andrew said. It's property assessment by the county, which has nothing to do with market rate.
and how often does the county reassess? Is that once every?
They haven't reassessed since the 90s.
So they reassess slightly when you pull permits,
Right.
which I do because I have a great deal of integrity and pull all my permits. And so
Thank
I'll
you.
get reassessed
Appreciate
periodically, but it's an infinitesimal increase.
Right.
So just for fun, I decided to run what my increase would be, my contribution to the fire department, which I'm happy to pay. My millage rate for my property is $367. Because I have a larger home, I think, for the township housing stock. So again, because your tax assessed value is not your Zillow value.
So I asked because maybe the guy was wrong, but we're looking at a property to purchase. And I looked at what the assessed value was and what I'm paying now, and the lawyer that I'm working with said, just keep in mind, you may get a pretty big ding on your tax seeing what you're paying for it, compared to what it showed in the sale documents.
In my experience, I do planning, zoning, I do municipal work, and I haven't seen that.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
It'd be great to factor in what they're showing the taxes are compared to what I'm being told.
The reassessments occur when you pull permits, when you get if you put in a pool, they might reassess it and it might add 10% to your 10% to your assessment, depending on how big a pool you got and how much it roughly costs under their assessment calculation, but that calculation has nothing to do with market rate.
I have redone an entire basement, redone my kitchen, I've redone a master bathroom, and I have pulled permits for every project. And I think my assessment went up maybe $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again, and that's over me owning the home for over 10 years.
So yeah, I'm just driving home that point. Your millage does not keep up at 3 mils, at 4 mils. In a few years, you're going to be talking probably 5 mils, because I don't see the county reassessing anytime soon.
Good point. Thanks.
Back in the 90s, it was a huge thing. It made the news when they were reassessing, and it was awful.
And I just want to make one point. If this EMS fire tax could be changed next year, right? So if the county decided to, do something really, that would be extremely unpopular if they were to start, reassessing the property values. But that could be something that we would take into consideration and get rid of the tax at that time. Would you please come to the microphone, state your name and your address?
Hi, I'm John Kiernan, 35 Wesley Lane. Well, thanks for the great information and overview. I think the good news is there's been a great job in accumulating resources for the township. I mean, to have that reserve level, I think is probably enviable compared to other townships. But I think from all of this, I don't sense the urgency level to raise the taxes 1 mil. I think in the presentation of the different options, it would have been nice to see options that had maybe less of a millage increase and maybe adjustments to expense or some other approach to take a look at that. I think what Bob's proposing is reasonable. I think an incremental increase is more palatable. I mean, we've had some people sort of, pro tax increase, which is surprising to me. I thought we'd have maybe more resistance to it. But I think in general, it's unpopular. I think being sensitive to the residents and some whom, aren't here, maybe can't be here, but are finding it difficult to make ends meet. I'm not hearing a lot. I'm hearing a lot of concern for the financial, ultra conservative, safe, standing of the balance sheet here. But I think we are a stable community. I think we're a predictable community. I think a more incremental approach to tax increases where maybe that's presented in some, delivered to the public either through the meetings or through the newsletter or just some kind of a heads up that it's not, in this compressed fashion done, just within a couple of weeks would be at least my recommendation. And I think the urgency level to raise the taxes, I just don't see it. I think that if we get into next year, and I'll be up here with you guys, we can look at it, and if it's a quarter point, so be it, or whatever's needed. But I think it's kind of a little too much to when it's not necessarily needed, given the healthy reserves that are there in every area, like except for fire. Like that's the one. Like I noticed on the budget, 000 from 2021 through 2024, and that sort of stood out to me. That was, and maybe that helps explain why we're where we're at right now. But so if I were up here with you guys, I would be not increasing by a mil. I would be doing something different. Probably some of the excess reserve. I don't think it puts the township at risk. I don't think it means no one's getting paid for the first quarter. I think that's hyperbolic. I think we're fine. And then as far as other future aspirational projects, Sedgley, this, I think that's open to discussion with the new board. Okay, so thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
I am Claudia Kiernan, 35 Wesley Lane. This is overwhelming. I have to tell you, I'm going through it and just, I think you need a degree just to even read this.
We're going to take that as a compliment, Claudia. Thank you.
What's that?
We're going to take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm just saying that, to try to go through all of this and digest it, it takes time. I just want to speak to I had heard that there might be a tax increase. And so I was looking through here trying to find it. I couldn't even find it. So I don't even know if it's in here. But you guys have mentioned it. And I heard at the last meeting, the workshop, that it was brought up that residents were concerned about a possible tax increase. And one of the board members said, there is no tax increase. We're not talking about a tax increase. And now here we are again. You just let me finish because it's hard for me to think and talk. So here we are again, and yes, it's being introduced. I agree. In any type of business, there should be a long-range financial plan, just some sort of basis. So I agree, Bob, that makes prudent sense for our township, and I'm truthfully surprised that we don't do it. With that, residents can be prepared to know down the road we're looking at a tax increase. And right now, I feel shocked and a little angry, honestly, to hear about a tax increase. And you can minimize it all you want and say how little it is for each family, but I have spoken to several residents who are working towards retirement, and they can't afford any increases because whoever mentioned life is expensive. And I understand that our EMS and the ambulance need support, but I agree, if there's extra money in the municipal or the capital funds to help out with their immediate needs, and then, yes, you do a 5-year plan, and then you assess how is this going to work down next year, and yeah, no, we do need to do an increase. That is reasonable. You're taking residents by surprise with this $1 million increase. I have to say it, and I would hope that you would table it and go with considering it. Give the fire company what they need, let them get their trucks, and then determine what is the best way to have our township run smoothly. And if we do need to do a tax increase, at least residents have time to digest it and accept it and not feel like, and I say this with the greatest amount of respect, but not feel like the Board of Supervisors has their own agenda and they're not looking out for the residents. But I do thank you.
I would like
for
to
all
remind
you're doing.
everybody that we are residents too.
I think what I'm hearing, though, is transparency with a projection forward instead of a last minute. In the first budget meeting, as John, I think you said it, we're not discussing a tax increase tonight. That's dodging the message that we should have given for months ahead of time to say, hey, we're going to be discussing a tax increase. We want you all to come out and hear your opinion and explain everything. Nobody really knew about it until the second budget meeting when it was said, okay, this is where we are. We're going to have a tax increase. We can do a better job with transparency in the future.
I'm sorry, I wasn't at the first budget meeting. The one thing I'd like to respond is that, from what I understand, no decisions were made about what would be funded, whether the fire department would be funded or the police would be funded until that meeting. So to even consider how we would fund it would be off the table, right? So I don't even think if there was going to be a tax increase, that would even be decided until we knew we needed that type of money.
But that's the
and
kind
I
of thing
agree with,
also.
could we use the resource funds? Yes, but we would need more time to consider that. And we have to have a budget done by the 31st of the end of the year. And we're rapidly running out of time.
I just want to give John the opportunity. It's hard for him to participate, and I know he wanted to speak. John?
Thank you. Just to defend myself for 2 seconds really quick. You're right. I did say that tonight we are not discussing any tax increases. We are specifically talking about our expenditures. And at next meeting, we will be talking about revenue and whether or not it includes a tax increase. There was a second sentence that followed that. If that was confusing, I apologize. I know we were all tired and drained, but I did try to make it clear that I was trying to separate very clearly between that night we were talking about expenditures, the next night we were going to be talking about revenue. So if that was unclear, I apologize, but I am in no way trying to hide anything or have a separate agenda or sneak something through without someone seeing. It's not my intent.
Thanks, John. Any other, hi, say.
Carolyn DeBundo, 10 Lockview Lane. So, I think, first I want to thank everybody. I know it's obviously I can tell by sitting here the last few weeks, it's a painful job. And you put a lot of hours and it's appreciated. Martha, I appreciate, you've been here for a lot of years and what the board has done and what the township has done to make us fiscally in a good position. Obviously, we weren't many years ago. If I look, so I got curious in the last few days. In 2023, our general fund had $3.6 million in it. 2024, it went up to 5.8. This is unassigned. Now we're sitting at I think 6.6, or it's going to be 6.1. So it is steadily increased now over, the 1 year I couldn't get to come up, but it's been steadily increasing over the last at least 4 years. So we have to assume, we're going to hope it goes on that same trajectory. If it does, then we will not be in the dire position that we think we could be in. To Bob's point, he's saying right now it's 100% of our general fund. I brought it up last week and I asked Lori, can that money be used for a capital fund to help the fire and EMS? Since we do have money sitting there, we probably don't want it to get down to 25 or maybe even 40. But Bob is saying we'd be at 68 if we did this. And I honestly felt like it was never even considered. So then I did a little more research because I'm like, I didn't hear about this tax. So I looked back, and on September 25th, it was mentioned about, sorry for my phone because I didn't have it printed. It said that Lori mentioned, they call you Ms. Getz, by the way, on here, that you talked about how we are looking at the municipal complex. And Martha asked, how is this possibly needing a bond to fund the municipal complex and possibly the EMS? So Martha said, how will this bond be paid, right? So she asked that question. So Lori said it will be addressed during the budget meeting and noted that there is a potential tax increase for the 2026 budget, which reflects not only the municipal complex renovation, but also other township needs. So Mr. Jacob says that potential tax increase is flexible and could be adjusted or used for other township needs, including EMS and other grant funds that are applied. So obviously, tax increases and the potential of it being needed or where it could go or being allocated was discussed. So I sat here, and I'm sorry, John, I know you said you were confusing, but when John said, we're not here to discuss tax increases, we're not doing a 33%, very upset because of what the public was saying, that led us to believe, wait a second, there's no discussion of a tax increase, which obviously there was. Now, maybe a decision wasn't made at that point, but obviously there had been discussions. We need to balance it. Where are we going to get the money? Where are we going to allocate it? So I have to ask, in a time where I have never seen so much outpouring of people doing food donations and pantries, and we know what is going on in the news right now, and people that are starving. That's what you're hearing. People cannot afford to feed their families. Is this the time to do it? Because we have Phoenixville, which is raising their taxes for the schools, which is our more expensive tax. So this is going to be on top of what they're going to do. In addition to that, they're talking about raising it more than they were planning because they want to build a new school or I don't know, millions of dollars for the high school. I think this guy back here knows how much. It's a lot. So we don't know what they're going to do, and we don't know how it's going to affect our residents. So maybe it's going to be $200 to the average resident. To the people at this table, that might not mean much, but I can guarantee you to the people that don't even pay attention to what's going on here because they have so many bigger problems in their life than what they're doing in this room, that's going to be a big bill, especially if they're getting hit with another $200 or another $300 from the school board. So before you make this decision, I think you really have to think about, have you looked truly at all the options? And I know Bob, when he's on something, it's like a dog with a bone, he doesn't let it go. But there's a reason for that. It's because if you think about it, have you truly, I feel like it's just like, shut it down. It doesn't matter what the public says. We have to do this. Do we really have to do this? If we have $6.8 million, can we not buy ourselves a year? To your point, groceries, everything's more expensive. Is that when you go to your residents and say, you know what? We want to make sure that we have extra funds in case we get a lot of snow. Well, 68% is going to cover that. I think the timing is bad. If you go through next year and you say, we need to do this, then you do it. But you don't raise taxes because once you do, you don't ever decrease them. It doesn't happen. So I would ask that the board seriously, if you don't have to decide tonight, seriously talk and consider it and keep open minds. Because at the end of the day, you're here for the residents, and that's why you put in your time, and that's why you're here. So truly think about how it is affecting them. Because I know many of you on this board that are very active in helping people and donating time and energy and funds and everything you can, and the township, and that's what they do. So let's think about how this is going to affect them, because do we really need to have another 6 million sitting there next year? Probably not. And if we're short, so we raise it. If we're down to 4.5, we raise it up. That's it. Thank you.
I just want to give Lori the opportunity to respond, Carolyn, just because of on the one thing you said about what we were going to be discussing. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, at the September workshop meeting, the topic for that meeting was the municipal complex. So at that meeting, we had a presentation by the architects on where we stood with our current plans. We are at 95% completion on our construction documents for the municipal complex renovation. So those were presented. Our illustrious engineer over here presented a draft sketch plan of site plans, so for our potential land development. And the third part of that presentation was we had our financial advisor come in, the same guy who did the bonds for the Sedgley property acquisition. He came in and gave the board a presentation on what funding this project could look like in today's market. So that was the purpose of that. During that discussion, now we were not intending, or at least I was not intending that evening to have a detailed discussion. It was designed to be a 30,000 mile overview of what the options were available to the board. During that meeting, the question came up, rightfully so, how are we going to pay for the bonds? The response to that from all of us is, well, there are many options in how you can pay for it. A tax increase is one of them. The financial advisor explained how much 1 mil equals. In no way was that we are raising taxes for the municipal complex, or we would need to raise taxes by this much for the municipal complex. And the comment that I made about a tax increase being not just for, I think you read it from the minutes, but not just for the municipal complex, was because I was already working on the budget. Now, it wasn't final at that time, but at the September workshop meeting, I was not done with my first draft, but I was already at a very high level of a deficit as I was beginning to prepare it. So the comment that I made about if there were a tax increase to pay for the municipal complex project, it doesn't solve all of our problems, because we also have an issue with the general fund. And that's where I was at that point. And that's what I was mentioning. I did say I believe I did say we would discuss it during future meetings. If I said discuss it during the budget process, that was a mistake on my part, because it's not part of the 2026 budget, because Jamie presented the options that night. And even assuming, and again, we are not there yet, the board has not decided what the plan is for the municipal complex renovation, how we're paying for it. That's a decision to come at another meeting. But even if they did decide, and Jamie said this publicly that night, even if the board did decide, yep, let's sell some bonds and we'll use that to finance the municipal complex project, our first debt service payment wouldn't happen until 2027. We operate on a 1-year operating budget. So that is not, the reason that's not included in this year's budget is it's not included in this year's budget. It's not an expenditure for 2026.
Okay, so I have just 2 follow-up questions to that. The first one was, when that came up about we're looking at a deficit, was it ever considered to take the money out of the general funds? Did anybody say, well, we've got $6.8 million. Is this something we should look at? Was it discussed amongst the board at that point in time?
That's what it shows. So like I said in the beginning, the way that I prepare the budget every year is I put everything in there. So we always start the conversation. If you go back into prior budget meeting minutes, you'll see that we always discuss what the current carryover is. That carryover, that's an interfund transfer from our general fund reserve to balance the budget. That's what that is.
Okay.
So on the very top line of your budget, so option 3 that we're talking about, that proposes using almost $824,000 of our general fund reserves to balance the budget in the form of an interfund transfer, because as Mike said, a township can't adopt a budget on a deficit. You do it with a fund transfer.
So that's budget 3. So that's my question. Did the board actively discuss and debate the option and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of option 3?
They discussed all 3 options at the last meeting. Yeah.
So my other question is, you talked about the municipal project. Is there money allocated next year toward any kind of planning or anything having to do with that municipal fund project, or is that coming out of the capital municipal fund, or where's that money
Capital
coming
fund. The municipal
capital money
complex
that's been
fund.
putting aside?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
So just to follow up on that, and boy, it went in so many directions, I lost my train of thought there. Well, one of the things and that I thought we were going to discuss, and I understand why we're not going to, for the municipal project, we were given, and one of the things is you guys didn't get to see the options in the second meeting. We got an email that showed
I explained
options
them all.
1, 2, and 3, but we didn't have paper copies.
I did provide an overview, and we gave everybody the original copies, and I explained what was changing in each one, because the overall the line items weren't changing.
Okay, so I guess, but to answer the question, there was an option given, but it wasn't given to you to really look at and understand. It was discussed, but not provided to the people. So that's something maybe we can look at doing better next time. But just to recap, when we talk about a tax increase now, when we talk about talk about an increase now, instead of drawing down out of the general fund, the increase that could come with the municipal complex that was explained to us in September could be upwards of, 850,000, depending. Now, if we don't do it next year, that was today's bonding, it's going to go up each year. So there could be another tax increase following right behind this, which again feeds to the 5-year plan of let's really look at what this costs, what we need for the fire. So we'll discuss that next year, and I'm going to heavily promote a 5-year plan that shows the trajectory, including any special projects outside of our normal operating expenses.
Nobody's disagreeing with you on a 5-year plan. We just can't do it 2 weeks before the budget. Nobody
sorry.
here is disagreeing with you that we need a 5-year plan.
No,
So you
I
say
know.
you're heavily promoting it. Nobody's
I said
disagreeing.
next
There's
year I'm gonna
no
heavily promote
disagreement.
it. No, that's good. But I'm just saying, you could have back-to-back increases. If we do this one, and then this hits next year, if the board decides, hey, we want to expand this building and it's going to be upwards of $10 million, that could be another significant tax increase coming. So that's why I wanted to bring it up in the tax budget meetings, because it does apply to future planning. And I think it's prudent to talk about that.
I want to give one more shout out because, again, if you weren't here at the last meeting, Lori prepared all of this while our accountant is on maternity leave. So just like, this is a lot. This is a lot of work. The fact that she produced 3 separate budgets last meeting is a lot of work, and it's far more than we've ever asked her to do in prior years. Is there any other public comment or questions from the public on this before we call a vote? Okay, thank you.
So, are there any changes, revisions, anything the board would like to see in
I have
these
none.
versions?
I'm sorry, and just to be clear, the direction that we gave Lori at the last meeting was to prepare a preliminary budget, which was based off of version 2, which we discussed versions at the last meeting. So are there any other changes to version 2 that you want Lori to make?
No.
And my answer is no.
Andrew, did you have a question?
No, you said no.
Well, yeah, my quick question is that if we're looking at Bob's option of covering capital costs for the fire department to avoid the tax increase, and I'm looking at what we have on the budget in terms of what's the actual capital that would go, it's $271,881 that would be allocated to capital.
In Bob's option, I don't.
I'm just looking at
Bob's option is number 3, by the way. No tax increase.
In
Option
you have
2?
option 2 in front
Okay.
of you.
Andrew, are you trying to say that the difference between what the fire and EMS asked us for and what would be covered by the millage, that's the shortfall that you're just, this 271? Okay, which can be discussed at the next meeting after we adopt a reserve policy?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not clear on can you explain that to me a little further? I don't get it.
I was just trying to see if we could cover capital from the general fund, what percentage would it replace from a potential tax increase? It would be only $271,000.
No,
That's the difference
no,
with
yeah,
the tax.
that's with the tax. You're looking
Right.
at the option with the tax.
Right, because that's what I have in front of me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
right.
so are you asking if we didn't have a tax, what amount would we need? 400,000
$400,000.
is what they've asked for as a capital contribution. If we assume no tax increase, that 271 is what we can't quite get to because I did operating costs first, and then basically the balance of that 0.62 mil went to capital. That doesn't mean that you couldn't, as a board, decide at the end of this year if we
Right.
have budgetary surplus that
Right.
you wanted
And we
to
just- and we did
make an
discuss that.
additional deposit into their capital fund. You could do that. I don't know if that is answering
That
the
does.
question.
Thank you.
Again, after the first snow falls, we see how much money you've got left.
But again, we had the 2025 budget And I know we talked about this, and I mentioned it before, and we talked about this at last year's budget meeting. And it was discussed then that we were avoiding a tax increase in 2025, but we adopted a budget using almost $600,000 as an interfund transfer of our reserve fund. So in 2025, that is what we did. So and I believe I said at last year's budget meeting when we did that, this is the highest that we've adopted the budget since I've been here with that interfund transfer, assuming that we're going to use that to cover, which would mean that at the end of the year, we would presumably have less money left over than usual.
But we ran a surplus?
I don't know yet if
confused.
we're
still in the budget year. We don't know.
I would have
Okay.
to, so any budgetary surplus we have now, and we have a lot of our heavy hitting expenses in the last quarter of the year. So that's why it always, like when we start the budget meeting, we're always talking about, running about $1 million surplus. And by the end of the year, it's always cut generally at least in half. This year, because the way that it was adopted is assuming that we were going to take $491,404 from our general reserve fund to cover our expenses. Any surplus, if we end the year with a surplus, any amount, I have to deduct that first. Because really our surplus is only anything above and beyond that $491,000. So if we end the year with anything under $492,000 as a surplus, we've run a deficit.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay. Any other discussion on the board? So can I call a vote? Okay. So let's see. Did I make a motion yet?
no, but we didn't get there on the agenda yet. So
Okay.
so
So
you didn't miss anything.
all right. Sorry.
Now we're going to move new business if there's.
Okay. So we have now concluded old business, which was discussion and review of preliminary 2026 budget. New business would be motion to advertise the 2026 Schuylkill Township proposed budget for adoption on December 8th, 2025. So I'm so move to advertise the 2026 Schuylkill Township proposed budget for adoption on December 8th, 2025. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Lori. I'm sorry, Martha.
All those in favor to advertise the 2026 Schuylkill Township proposed budget for adoption on December 8th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's version 2 because that's the one that at the end of the last meeting, we gave direction to Lori to proceed with version 2. That decision was made. I'm sorry, I'm saying it for myself as much as for you
Make
because
sure you capture,
it's a lot.
I'm a nay vote, just so you know.
Okay, and so can we reflect that Bob is a nay to advertise the budget? Okay. Okay. Moving on in the agenda, we are now going to consider the approval of a quote from Richard Grubb and Associates in the amount of $10,243 for Historic Resource Survey Mid-Century Modern Ordinance Update. So this is a proposal that was recommended for approval by the Historical Commission. As Lori had said, each of the township committees provides a budget for consideration. And those are incorporated in. We had a full discussion of this at our last meeting. Lori, do you have anything else to add to this?
I do. And because of the timing of when this agenda was prepared and our last budget meeting happened, we discussed this. And the decision was made that I explained at the beginning of the meeting of how we were going to incorporate this into the 2026 budget. So I would suggest we not approve the quote this evening because sometimes that can negatively impact a grant process that they don't want to see that you've already awarded a contract to somebody before you apply for the funding. And I'm not intimately familiar enough. This is not a grant that I've ever applied to before. And given that the board has given the direction at the last meeting that they'd like to see the Historical Commission seek grant funding for this, there's no longer any rush to get this done. So I would suggest you can table the motion and we'll have continued discussions on this project.
I'll make the motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor, any further discussion or those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up on the agenda is to a vote to authorize advertisement to bid the traffic signal maintenance agreement for 2026. Who's taking that one? You or Paul?
I'll cover
Discuss
it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe
I'll
we.
make that motion.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to authorize advertisement to bid the traffic signal maintenance agreement for 2026.
And I'll
Do I have a
second.
second? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so traffic signal maintenance agreement. We have a contract with a contractor every year to do maintenance, upgrades, any of that to the traffic signals that we have in the township. Our traffic engineer, Bowman, has prepared a bid for us to seek alternatives and see what other options are out there for other companies. We haven't done this in a long, long time here, so it's just time.
We've had the same company
Yeah.
long before I
For
even
sure.
started on
and
the
companies
board.
have merged and turned into new companies at this point. So we would like to see what other options are available out there and see if we can't improve some of our service. It's very time consuming maintaining these traffic signals that PennDOT owns and we take care of. So that's it. The bid has been reviewed by Mike. So the intent would be for this to be advertised and then awarded at the reorg meeting.
I think this is a great idea.
Any further discussion by the board?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and so the next two items, I guess we have to do these separately, right? Is with respect to approving Lori and Valentina.
you missed
sorry.
one.
Oh, sorry. It's
Number 4.
maybe I should wear my glasses. Okay, this is with respect to appointing a certified public accountant. So I will make a motion to advertise our intent to appoint a certified public accountant for the Schuylkill Township 2026 audit. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead. You can have that, Andrew.
That should be 2025.
Oh, yep.
Oh, shoot.
2025.
Okay,
In 2026.
Audit in 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always
The
one.
year prior.
Do you want me to
That's
make the motion again?
That's good.
No.
That's fine.
Okay. Do we have any discussion of this, or did you want to? No.
No.
Okay.
We have to do it every year.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now we get to discussion and vote on having Lori and Valentina attend the PA Municipal League annual training conference. And so, can I make both motions at one, or each individual? I'll make.
Together.
That's fine. I'll make them individually.
No, you can just combine them. Just,
Yeah.
Name
Okay.
Us, name us both.
I make a motion to, is it consider authorizing? To authorize.
To authorize.
To authorize Lori Getz and Valentina McCarthy.
Close.
McCartney? Oh, McCartney.
I actually wrote this.
And she wrote that.
Still wrote my own lesson.
Okay. Authorizing Lori Getz and Valentina McCartney to attend the PA Municipal League PELRAS annual training conference at the Hershey Lodge, March 25th to 27th, 2026, with overnight accommodations. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Lori or Valentina, do you want to speak to that? I did review the agenda and it looks really great. There were so many sessions on, hold your ears, chief. There's so many sections on collective bargaining that I thought that the conference will pay for itself in no time. I really did think that it will. It's certainly very informative and it's an educational experience, I think, for staff that will benefit the township.
It is, yeah. PELRAS is it's run by the Pennsylvania Municipal League, and it's the Public Employer Labor Relations Advisory Service. I did have to remind myself of what that acronym stands for because I never spell it out. It's always just PELRAS. But our labor law firm, Campbell Durant, does all of the training. So it is. I always say when we get back from that conference, we're exhausted because it is just nonstop morning to night of heavy legal content, which the lawyers in the room are probably accustomed to, not so much on us on the public administration side of the world, but it's highly beneficial managing police departments, any labor law issues. You get the updates on what has changed in the law, what we need to be
looking out for. So it's really, it's
risk assessment.
it's highly beneficial. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. Last on the agenda is let's see, do we have last on the agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, discussion, discussion on the request, and I received from the Open Space Commission to make a presentation at Sedgley Farms pre-master planning meeting on November 13th, 2025. Do we have someone from Open Space who's presenting on this?
No. No,
So what
I
do
can
they
explain it, and Bob can probably chime in.
What do
Yeah,
they want to discuss?
So one of the, we've had some good meetings here with, is it Peter Simone? Yep. All right, I got it. Talking to the folks, and it occurred to me as I'm watching the meeting that the public hasn't really had a good education on what open space has been achieved, what has access, what it costs, what the grant funding was, and where we are in the mission. I think it'd be a good idea for them to know, because as you can see in the budget, we're paring down. We're at $2.8 million, something like that. And there's potential for a lot of that money to go toward maintenance. So a few of the comments that were made is, don't think about money. Let's put the plan together. You can nick away at it over a lot of years. I think the public needs to have a full picture of where we are, how much we've achieved, what's left out there to achieve, and get a full overview of where we are. So in talking to Tim, he said, we can put something together and get what easements we've got, what property we've bought, what benefit it's had, and educate the people. They need to know.
I happen to agree with what you're saying, but
No
I
way.
don't. But I don't know. I do agree with that. I think it's a great thing, but I'm not really sure that making the presentation at the Sedgley Farm pre-master planning meeting is the appropriate place for that.
You're getting a lot of people that are making comments that are based on not being educated. They're thinking all kinds of things can be done, and Peter's message is, paint the master plan of the greatest thing in the world. I'm saying you got to keep the big picture in mind of where we're headed.
I agree with that. I do absolutely agree that you should have that, but I don't think that the master plan meeting for Sedgley Farm is the right place for that.
One of the things they had mentioned when Simone Collins came was that we would take the opportunity to hear everything the township wanted for recreation in these meetings, and it wouldn't be necessarily just for Sedgley Farm. It would form a list for the township of the needs and wants of the community that we could take over a much longer period and say part of that could be addressed by Sedgley, but perhaps the other part couldn't, and that would be for open space to help us with in the future to maybe find some of those properties, sell it back to the township for if we couldn't achieve it with open space only, or to use general fund for fee simple purpose. I don't know how we would do it, but I just know that future list is something we should consider. One of the things that struck me as a resident when I moved here is I asked, where's a playground for my kids in our township? And we didn't have one. We love Reeves Park, but it'd just be great to have something here, was my attitude then. Now I understand what it takes to build a playground, the insurance you need, all the things about it. And I still don't think, I have no idea what SUG is going to be. That's not for me to decide.
So would you prefer that an education be given through the newsletter? Would that work better?
I actually think that this would be a great thing to do at the country club. We need to start those meetings back up again. We stopped them because of COVID. We have the country club 4 times a year. And I think it would be a really great opportunity
It's a great idea.
for the Open Space Commission to talk about that kind of stuff. But again, I don't think Sedgley pre-master planning meeting is the right place for that.
Was Matt Klein here to speak to that? Did we lose
Was
him?
what?
Was Matt Klein here to speak to that? Did we lose him? Is that why he was here?
Might have been.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But when I guess what I'm picturing is the more educated they are, the more they can weigh in now. Because if they're going off on tangents of, hey, we can do this, this, and this, and let's make a giant plan, that giant plan can cost a lot of money. If it can be pared down because people have a better working knowledge of what's happening and where we are, I think that'll help them to say, well, wait a minute, we have a mission. we have X amount of money. You got to factor that into the decision of what a plan should look like.
I would like to hear unrestricted ideas and speech, and that's the reason we're having that. In my mind, that's why we're having this pre-planning meeting. I would rather allow people to imagine what they would like to see with the open space and give us free ideas. Yes, we are constrained by reality. We are constrained by budget. We're constrained by all sorts of factors, and that's our role as township supervisors to work within those constraints. But I would rather people think of the most creative ideas and their wish list for items, and then we can pare those down because of what reality requires of us, then set those restrictions initially by giving people, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, and we don't have enough money to do this. Then you're going to have a filtered view of what people want. And yes, we're the grown-ups in the room, right? We have to make those decisions. We're elected by the people to make those decisions. But I still would rather hear unrestricted views of their.
I really think that the Open Space Commission could do that at the country club. What I also think should happen is that, I'm sorry, John, did you say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would love to see their involvement in the master planning process. So to Danielle's point, I think it's too early right now. Get them on, hell, bring them on the steering committee. I think it would be great to have the representation on the steering committee, but we're not at a place where we're talking about budget, and to offer a different perspective as well as someone who's also at those meetings. I don't think Peter's intention was that we can build as big as we want and then just kick the payment down the road. It was that we want to collect all your ideas now, and then we will filter them down the road. Come to later process. To Daniel, it's exactly what Daniel was saying. We're just collecting ideas right now.
Well, I think I pictured it like, let's put our shopping list together without giving a budget. It's not a good idea because you could say, oh my God, I want everything.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in the end, we only have this to work with. So education's important, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the things that happened with Valley Park. When we did the master plan for Valley Park, everything was open to the public. Everyone could put anything that they wanted to see at Valley Park. And then the next part of the process was, like you had said, what can't we do? What restrictions are there because of the land itself? Or money wasn't even talked about, to be honest with you. It was more of the restrictions of the land. Like most of it's wetlands, so you can't have playgrounds and fields and things like that in it. One of the other things was deed restrictions and that kind of stuff. You get into those first, and then you say, okay, we can't have this because of these restrictions, and then we can have this. I don't think that the Open Space Commission, I'm going to say it again, is appropriate for them to come to the pre-master planning. I think that would come during the master plan process.
So you agree
and I'm
that-
actually going to bring this up at my 2-minute reports because the Historical Commission and the Planning Commission have made the same request.
So I'm going to punt over to our newsletter and say that I think that might be one of our best communication tools to say, if we're not going to do it now, it does need to be done. I think it's a great idea to do a country club day. How many people will we really get to come out to that? You hope to see a couple dozen.
If they care, they will.
But if we put it in the newsletter and say, hey, here's where we started, here's where we are, do a good job educating the people. Maybe that can be done between now and the master plan.
I will speak for Valentina and say that we would absolutely love it if anybody would give us content for the newsletter.
All right.
Because that does
Well,
not
then-
usually happen, and she is coming up with it herself.
Good job.
But
Good
we
job
have-
in advance, Valentina.
But we don't speak for the Open Space Committee, so this will be brought to the next Open Space Committee meeting for them to decide whether they want to do a presentation at the country club. And we'll have
Yeah.
a future conversation
Yeah.
about it.
The other thing I'll say on that is that I did provide, I spoke to Peter about some of this, and I think it was after one of the last planning sessions that we talked about, it might be good to incorporate into their presentation just some factual background information on the Open Space Commission, because to your point,
a lot of people might be there that don't know what it is. And we did, I gave him just when the referendum passed, what the referendum was, how much revenue it generates on an annual basis, what the Open Space Commission does, how that helped, how that really made it possible for us to purchase essentially. So that information is just incorporated as an informational, this is, hey, do you know that we have an Open Space Commission?
And no, I mean,
Are you?
no offense to that, but what purpose does that serve for a forum where we're soliciting input? I mean, I appreciate, Lori, that you put the resolution establishing Open Space Commission, resolution, reviewing open space property interests under the Open Space Act, the township open space referendum, and the ordinance in our work folders so that we could review them for this meeting. But what's the objective to sharing that information? We're just trying to get people to tell us what they want to see for property that we've purchased. The role of the Open Space Commission is to recommend properties for us to purchase.
Correct.
Purchase the property.
Yeah.
But also educating the people, I think, is important to let them know what the success has been, what the results are, what they now have to access. And yes, you want to put a shopping list together, keep in mind there's a budget.
No, I disagree with that. And if that's the purpose for this, I don't want to stifle creative suggestions. That's why we're not presenting at this forum. Like, we can attend as individual residents of the township, but I'm not speaking. I have not been speaking on behalf of myself at all. I'm just listening to what other people have to say, because I'm not trying to steer the conversation towards one direction or another. I really want to hear what people have to say.
Okay.
I just don't think that we just should be stifling their speech.
I'm not looking to stifle. I just want to educate. I'd like people to know what we're dealing with. They don't have a vision. They don't know a fraction of what we know.
No, and Bob, I appreciate that. It is, you're trying to say, hey, if you do this, it might cost this. But I think when you tell kids to brainstorm, you don't tell them that you're not likely to be an astronaut. You don't do things like that to our town when they say, well, here's what we want. If they want it that bad, they could lobby the entire town for a tax increase and get the whole town to want it that bad. And if they say yes, and that's what happened with open space, right? Everybody lobbied and said, let's create an open space fund because we want it that bad. So my whole thing is, let's just get the creativity. Let's not stifle creativity at any point. And then once we get that list, we can obviously go into that master plan and say, this costs way too much. And if those people are part of the master plan, they can say, okay, maybe this is for another piece of property that I can fundraise for.
Yeah.
I would really like to see the Open Space Commission and any of our committees or commissions be part of the steering committee. But we're not there yet, and I don't think it's appropriate for them to be there at this meeting.
What about the talking points that Lori's presented to Peter? I mean, I'm just not.
Yeah.
Is it Peter? No.
Does the board even want
Peter? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want those incorporated or not? I can also leave it to his professional judgment.
Your microphone, Bob.
It's a basic education without persuading what you have there now, so I'm okay with it.
I don't know how he would use it, but if I would let him have it, and if he uses it, great. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
I just don't want it to become a discussion about the Open Space Committee. It's not supposed to be a discussion.
I don't think it will.
I know it is, but it is a discussion. This is
It's not a discussion
this
about
is
the
a
committee.
big score.
Yeah.
That the open space, if it wasn't there, it never would have happened, right? So I think you connect the dots and say, this is where it started, this is where we are, and give them an education. Start educating now. We can use the newsletter, we can use the country club, but start telling the people a clear picture of where we started, what it's achieved, what the benefits are, what access you have, the grant money that came in, the trails that are available, and then let them do with that what they want. But you're right. Maybe they'll say, hey, they need to know, maybe we should rally for another. Let's keep going. But right now it's, how many people show up at the Open Space Commission meeting? And how many people know what went into this and all the other properties and what's out there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to be clear, the Open Space Committee was not involved in acquiring Sedgley.
Absolutely was. If it
Well-
wasn't there, we wouldn't have gotten it.
The fund was.
And the fund,
The fund was.
yes,
The committee wasn't.
the committee,
Wasn't because of
Uh,
the circumstances.
okay. That really doesn't matter how
No,
it
but
happened.
it-
It wouldn't have happened without open space.
It wouldn't have happened without the money. That's 100%.
That was driven by a lot of people rallying to
Yeah.
get it to where it is. A lot of work, a lot of hours.
I mean, if we're voting on, I don't know if this is something that we even have to vote on. I would say not to complicate the discussion on open space with for Sedgley, the Sedgley public input pre-planning public input hearing, which is to get unvarnished public input in advance of a formal planning process. I would say we don't need to have a discussion. I would not recommend having discussion of the Open Space Committee at that point in time, but think that it would be great to have that as a robust topic, and with all the accolades given to the members of that committee and the whole process that has led to the creation of that
It's not
fund.
about accolades. Come on. It's about
No.
education.
Yes, I'm not.
We
being
have an
fac-
uneducated room
I'm
full
not
of
being
people coming
facetious.
in.
I'm not being facetious, Bob.
Okay.
But I don't agree that it should be part of the pre-planning
Right.
process.
I agree.
And I take issue, like, yes, they're not educated in the costs of running a park, but I don't think they need to be in this instance when they're just trying to be creative. I think that conversation comes afterwards. And to my analogy
No.
about a kid, you don't tell them that being an astronaut is going to take X many hours of going through this until they come a little older, because you let them desire and dream the same way. And I'm not saying we're all kids in our township, but I'm just saying dreams are what people have,
Right.
desires are what people have. And sometimes we just got to hear it, form our own list. And if they want it bad enough, then they'll come to the township and say, I want to help drive this forward. And you know what? We would welcome it.
I'll
John, do
just
you have anything
close
to
with this
add?
and say you can spin a lot of wheels if they don't know what they don't know. And it'd be much more
One
helpful
meeting.
if they did.
It's one meeting. We're not spinning all the wheels. We have a full master planning process that's coming next year that will involve a lot of discussions around this. I don't think we're going down a bad path. Personally, I don't see any.
John, just to be clear, are you for or against the discussion of the Open Space Committee and the referendum and all of that at the?
Against.
Against, okay. All right. Laura, I think you have your direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
I lost my agenda. Here. I have it somewhere.
Okay, moving on to resolutions, ordinances, we have, I'm sorry, was there any comment from the public, Mark, if you want to speak? Or you're going to cede your time? Thank you. Resolutions, ordinances, there's none on the agenda, 2-minute reports, board liaisons, starting with Bob.
Everything's good. Let's get the hell out of here.
Okay, and I guess he's speaking for open space. So Andrew, you sat in for me for the Phoenixville Regional Planning Committee.
It was a very good regional planning committee. It was a very good regional planning committee because they talked about parks, recreation, and open space implementation around not just our township, but in the Phoenixville regional area. Kevin Myers there spoke about guidance on trails and how to consider maps for trails and open space, of what's existing and what could be. Something that he mentioned was there's an official e-tool, official map documentation that they have on the Chester County site. Recommended creating an official map ordinance, and also to advertise that signage for programs for municipal regional trails. There's grant opportunities for that, and that all municipalities have signage for trails except Schuylkill Township, just because we don't have a lot of trails running through here. And last thing was that the major trail committee update and updates from townships was about Phoenixville Toll Brothers Development. The kindergarten center is seeking to have also a code law for detention centers in Phoenixville. I thought
Wait,
that was pretty good.
Oh, wait, what? Can you repeat that?
Phoenixville said in the meeting that Toll Brothers Development, the kindergarten center, is moving forward, and they're also seeking to have a code law for detention centers in their town.
Okay.
A code law.
Okay, so wait, Phoenixville Borough is
Borough.
seeking to create a
Code law.
there
for
an
detention
ordinance
centers.
regarding detention centers. Okay,
So
I'm
is it-
sorry, I thought that
am
related
I-
to the kindergarten center.
Unrelated to the kindergarten
let-
center. Sorry.
So what, I just have to ask, if they're creating a code law, is there a detention center that's following that, that's coming to town?
Rich Kirkner did not say anything to that.
I think they're being
Hmm.
preemptive, Bob. They did the same thing with gaming and data centers.
So in other words, to protect against it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, they're being preemptive. I mean, it's
I don't think
not.
they're putting a detention center. Where would they put it?
I thought Toll Brothers was building one. I was like,
I
what in the
was gonna
world?
say,
No, they're just saying the kindergarten center is moving forward with Toll Brothers.
Change of industry.
They seem very proud of Toll Brothers.
Martha?
Okay, so the Historical Commission is working on the plans for the 250th. And there is a volunteer. She's a resident of the township. I don't remember her name. I do apologize. She is very, very enthusiastic about wanting to take the lead on this. And when I go to the Historical Commission meeting next week, I will ask that they give a presentation to the board so that you guys know what's happening and all that kind of good stuff. So that was the historical. Oh, and the other thing that was discussed was the Historical Commission would like to have representation on the steering committee when it's appropriate for the master planning process of Sedgley Farm. The Planning Commission. There was a developer that had come to the Planning Commission to give a presentation on a daycare center at the corner of Charlestown, Bridge Street, and Pothouse Road. There's that empty lot there on the corner. They originally had said they were going to need some, help me out here, Paul. Something about, because I know I'm going to use the wrong terminology. They needed some of the space in the ultimate right of way. And I interrupted them by saying that we had a plan to expand and widen that intersection. And they needed to contact Lori to find out what that was supposed to look like. And I don't know if they ever did.
They did not, but I did talk to the traffic engineer about this and we looked at it. But we have not heard from the applicant. In short, it wouldn't be hugely impactful, but they were requesting a reduction to the ultimate right of way,
right?
Which is something that the board would have to talk about. And generally speaking, that's not something that townships always look favorably upon because you never know if you might need it. But to our plan in general, there wasn't any major concern with what most of our improvements are on the other side of the road.
That's
but
what
it
I
would,
thought, but
it
I
would
didn't-
have
yeah.
to be a discussion, but we've not heard from the applicant.
Okay. But the commission had some concerns about that as well as some of the other relief that they were asking for as well. They didn't think that it was a good spot for a daycare.
Is that on the Foresta side or is that on the other side? Directly across. So that's where the DeVault Trail
Yes.
would potentially,
Yes.
as the DeVault Trail parcel.
The their proposal would not interfere with the trail, with the railroad.
With the train line.
With the train line, right. It'd be next to it.
It'd be adjacent to it.
Yes, but not on it.
Okay.
The right of way for the train is not on the property. It's 418 West Pot House.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had, and then the relief that they were looking for, they had submitted two sketch plans, sketch plan 1, sketch plan 2. Sketch plan 1 didn't have any relief required. Sketch plan 2 did have some zoning relief required, but when we did our review of it, we noted about the ultimate right of way, which would have required some additional zoning relief in both situations. And they came and they actually presented a third version, which we didn't have an opportunity to review, but the planning commission offered their opinion throughout. It was just a sketch plan at this point.
I'm really surprised that they didn't,
It's this. It's this.
Where's the intersection? Yes, it's right there.
See,
Yes.
it's
No, you're right, your first finger. Yeah. Go straight across, up here, and it goes right through there and up to there. Yes.
See, it's the old train line. You can actually see it's where the trees are. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah. It's and it goes across Walter. It's really hard to see it. Okay.
Considering the fact that they haven't gotten back to you with any questions, Lori, I'm going to assume that they're going to drop this, but I don't want to make that assumption out loud, but that's just my guess. I'm not speaking for them. I just think that that's probably my guess. So the third thing that I wanted to talk about was on Saturday, we had our second annual textile recycling event.
That was fantastic.
And we have not gotten a weight yet from the company, but we filled up probably 2/3 of the truck.
Yeah.
And the employee, he was a really great guy. He was really funny. So going forward, I would like to make a request of the board because several people, when they came here, they want a bin. They want us to have a bin as opposed to just having events. And I did a survey with the people in my neighborhood we have a Facebook page for just our neighborhood. And I said, hey, if you guys were going to use this service, would you prefer events or would you like a bin? And most of them, almost all of them, said that they would like to have a bin. So please consider this because I think this is something that our residents would want to have.
What location do you have in mind for a bin?
Lori and I were talking on Saturday and we were thinking near the cardboard.
My only concern with it, Martha, and I thought I was there, and by the way, Martha did an amazing job organizing it. Lori was here on her day off until noon while she was working on the budget. She at a folding table, but my only concern is who maintains it. So, for example, if people throw trash in it,
They do.
They would.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that same concern when we've
They
talked
do.
about this before. Yeah. He basically said, now we haven't seen any official documents or anything for this yet.
I just wanted to get some feedback before I even
Yeah.
contacted them.
We've looked at it before, and when sometime was it last year? It was last year that we went down and toured the facility. They walked us through all the options.
2024.
And we
yeah.
kind of, at that point, wanted to see what's the reception going to be before we get a bin here. I have the same concerns. People have been very respectful, though, lately with the cardboard recycling. We have had very few issues with people putting things in there that don't belong. But they said if the bin fills up, they'll come get it. They'll
And
come
they said-
empty it. They empty it on a weekly basis, and they have a regular route because there are other bins in the area. So.
And the other thing they said too was that, if people do trash it up, they come and they clean it up.
Yeah, we wouldn't
Okay.
have to.
Yeah.
So it's an option.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's for those of you who weren't aware of it, it's a service to collect textiles and things that you can't otherwise donate. So, kids develop holes in their socks. My kids, I don't know how they do, but they have holes in every pair of socks they own. You can't donate socks with holes in them. You can't donate old sneakers, and this is a way of reducing what would otherwise go in your general municipal waste. So I think it's a great idea.
Does it sacrifice any parking?
No, it would be on the
no.
grass in
Yeah.
theory,
Yes.
and I haven't formally looked at anything yet. The
Yeah.
brainstorm idea was in the grass directly next to the dumpster. So kind of a whole recycling center.
Anyway, I would like to make the request because residents have made it of me to bring it before the board. But I think it was a huge success. I think it's something that our residents really want. And because we have filled now 2 huge truckloads full of stuff. And I think it was a good success. So I've gone 5 minutes instead of my 2-minute report. I apologize.
Okay, let's turn it off to the I'm sorry, township manager. I have nothing to report. Andrew attended my meeting.
I have nothing beyond things that we've already discussed
John.
at this point.
I'm so sorry. We skipped John.
We forgot about
John, I'm sorry.
How dare you?
I'm sorry.
That's all good. I'll keep it quick. Nothing major out of EAC. Yeah, nothing major other than they had their tree giveaway. It was a raging success, as it always is. They're increasing every year the amount of trees they have. I hope to do it again next year. Yeah, that's about it.
EAC is doing such a great job. I know that they were kind of downplaying all the things that they do this year, but they've really done an amazing job the past few years.
Okay, so I have nothing except that the building is closed tomorrow because it is Veterans Day.
Turning to the chief of police. Chief, do you want to have a report to present?
I'm not going to be long here. Trust me. The monthly report you all have. We are in the middle of the clothing drive and food drive. Other than that, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
We had a gentleman here on election day who came up with a whole truckload of things, and we helped him bring them into the township. It was really.
We can utilize an our pickup truck to take it downtown to drop it off. So we're trying to avoid the congestion in the building of the build up of food and clothes.
That was great. It's great.
Yeah, we even
got
had
lunch
people
on Saturday. Yeah,
we had people on Saturday that were dropping off textiles and dropped off food.
Yeah,
and new
a
coats
bunch of
too.
new jackets that I carried back there. Yeah.
Okay, township engineer.
Yes. So Martha already talked about the planning commission meeting. There will be another planning commission meeting this upcoming week with another application, land development application. And as far as the sidewalk is concerned, we're still working on securing the final couple signatures. And I've coordinated with Lori and Valentina that we're going to do an additional 1 call. We did a 1 call for the utilities back when we did the original assessment. We're going to do another 1 call to see if any other utilities have been installed. And of course, there will be another 1 call done by the site contractor once the project moves forward. The Wawa has been getting snagged in some utility conflict situations in the intersection. So we want to try to do as much due diligence as we possibly can to try to avoid any utility conflict in any cross pipes that we have.
And are we still required to do the soft dig for utilities, or are we still working with PennDOT on that requirement?
We are still working with PennDOT. We did ask them nicely one time, and they said they still want it. And we're going to ask them again, and I'm not sure what their response is going to be. Yeah, but I think I feel as if they're going to want us to do it. It's going to be very hard to avoid, but we can kind of persist. But yeah, we're trying.
Fire department?
Sure. Thank you for coming out to the pancake breakfast. You're too late to order soup that we're selling this weekend. Maybe you can stop in and pick up some other stuff. Bob, yours is still in the freezer from like 2 years ago. Stop by and pick it up. And I know, right? Yeah. And that's true. The 12th is our tree lighting. So stop on out, have some fun. Thank you.
Can you send us that to put on the website?
Can I before we move? December.
We're not at announcements yet. We're at
The 2-minute reports.
Oh, okay.
So I will not be able to attend the next planning commission meeting. So Bob, you said you would cover me for that. Will someone from either the board or staff be able to attend the historical commission meeting with me next week? because of all this stuff that they have going on with the 250th, and I'm not going to be here next year, I would kind of like to have somebody help transition that over.
What day is it?
It's next Monday. I mean, I will be there, but I would like to have somebody.
I can go.
No, it's not you. You seriously, you work late all the time.
They start early.
They start at
They start at
6.
I'll probably still be here. Not to commit myself, but I am often still here when Martha arrives for
Yeah.
Historic Commission.
Hey, John, not to put you on the spot, I'm in the office that day. Are you able to cover that meeting?
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I should be free for that. You said Monday the 17th, next Monday?
Yes, next Monday.
Yeah, I should be back by then.
That would be great. I would really appreciate it. I think it will just make the transition with the stuff that's going on with the 250th a lot easier.
One thing I'll say, but the one thing I'll say is I'm flying back on Sunday, and with the way flights are going, there is the risk I'm not back on Monday.
If you can't make it, I'll figure out a way to leave the office early and make it. Okay.
Okay. I highly doubt that'll be the case, but just want to give a heads up.
You're first backup.
Yep.
I'm second backup.
6
Works for me.
o'clock. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have discussion on agenda items for upcoming workshop meetings? We've already discussed a 5-year budget for next year, but
We don't have.
We have
more
none for the
workshop
rest of the year.
we don't have any workshops.
No.
There's no more workshops. Okay, because there's no
One's
November.
Thanksgiving and the other one's Christmas.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we don't do workshops in November or December.
Okay. Well, we have some ideas for 2026.
We sure do.
Okay. Announcements. Do we have any announcements?
He just made some.
Who he?
Evan.
He has a name. He just made some.
I was pointing to him.
That's even
because he was looking right at
That's
me.
even ruder to point.
Oh.
More rude. Additionally rude. Okay, public comment. Does anyone have any public comment? Oh my goodness. God bless you. I'm so sorry.
My name is Jessie Emery, and I live on Pembroke Circle. A number of neighbors in our community have become increasingly concerned about the excessive deer population in the last couple of years. I personally have 2 neighbors across the street who collided with deer in the last 2 weeks. Deer have run into cars parked in driveways in our neighborhood. I saw 6 carcasses on the side of the road in 1 week, which we've been here 28 years in our house. It's such a dramatic increase. I wonder if the township has looked into addressing this and what would be the right process, because a number of my neighbors want to kind of put together a proposal and suggestion. I've looked at other townships, but I won't go detailed. Who do I present the information
So can I speak to that one? Give you a little history. Many years ago, when I was part of it, there was a deer management crew, and the township had somebody that ran or that I guess was the lead person or liaison to figure out a solution. We've kicked it around a little bit, Danielle, and I talked about it because my neighborhood is exploding with deer right now. Every time I drive in, I have to wait for them to cross, and they're peaking. I'm sure the police here, I've been watching the reports over the year, the number of accidents are going up every year, and there was a death a little while back.
Yes, my son went to Melbourne Prep.
Yes, so yeah, it was horrible. And 2 people were killed in our township back when this started, or I think one in our township and one in a neighboring township. Motorcycle hit a deer. So it's a concern, and I wanted to bring that up to the board also. Because it's getting out of control. I don't know how the board feels about it, because what we did in the past, we went out and found an organized group that had insurance that protected us from liability. They had to be proficiency tested.
Deer management. They were actually going door to door in our community last year, asking for permission. But we don't have enough area really that suits the requirements of the.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because you need a little bit of you need some trees to get up and to shoot down to make it safe, and So there's a lot of requirements that we had to follow back then, and they've even got tighter with the groups that I know of. I don't know that the group I was involved in is still active in the area, but I do know of a group that's handling Radnor and a lot of areas over there that may be good for me to reach out if you guys think it's a good idea.
I think it'd be a I just said I think it'd be a great workshop topic for next year. And I personally, I think that if you came to the township, or Bob, you came to the township with a straw man with a proposal that we could then discuss. I mean, our town, we have very limited township staff, so the more work that the community does in presenting a proposal, the easier it would be for us to consider it. I do know, I mean, we talked about Sedgley Farms and that large parcel we acquired. We will have to think of some kind of management for that, because as our planners, the people that we've engaged to do the pre-planning, we haven't hired planners yet, have said to us is that you have to maintain the property no matter what you do with it. And the invasives will be decimated by deer if we don't do something.
So I'll start researching.
Won't be decimated, but everything good will.
Everything except for like the things that don't get eaten tend to be the invasives and Asian. Yeah.
A lot of thought has to go into picking a group that runs a tough organization. There's some that are good. There's some that aren't. Safety is a huge issue to me, lifelines and that kind of thing. That I'm going into the weeds, but I'll start looking around the area to see who's handling Radnor, Malvern. Different Township has all their parks being managed by a group.
I've kind of done a lot of that research, which I can share. I guess when
maybe,
would be the appropriate time for me to share? I'm going to have.
Why don't you give your information to Lori, and then she can let you know when we can get it on the agenda for a workshop?
Maybe for January. I realize it's too late for this year.
Yeah, this year we can't do much.
We're actually very worried about the situation.
Yeah,
I agree.
We also have people that we're aware of who are feeding deer not far away, which is a no-no for
that would be that you could report to
chronic wasting.
You could report that to the game commission.
It's been in our newsletter. I also think it's on our.
Well, you're allowed to use feeders now to draw deer in to hunt, but to feed them is a different story.
But it's discouraged, and there's a lot of good rationale for it being discouraged.
Right.
These are just people who think, oh, it's fun. I get to watch them.
So let's put that on as one of next year's topics. Right now, it's the rut, by the way.
Probably not January, just because we have the reorganization meeting in January and
a 5-year plan to talk about in February. And
I know it's very late, so I'm gonna.
But I actually wanted to say something to you. We used to allow hunting in Valley Park, and we used to allow hunting at Pickering Preserve. We stopped that because we improved both of those properties to have people in them. And we didn't know how to mix the two. How to have people
and have 12 deer running.
There is a way to do it. Other parks have roped it off for certain hours to say, hey. So those kind of things can be. Yep.
Conservancy, they both open to hunting.
It was just something that we couldn't figure out at the time, and we had other priorities. Sure. And I'll be honest, we blew it off. So
I'll keep my ears open between now and then of who the best organizations are, and maybe next year we can talk about it. But right now it's mating season. Yes. So be extra careful, because that's why you're seeing so many carcasses. There's a chase going on nonstop with bucks and does.
28 years, I had more deer scat in my yard than I've had in the other 28 put together.
And where are you located? What address?
We're Pembroke Circle, Valley Forge Woods.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something has happened. We've hit a tipping point, and then if the population doubles each year.
It does, and then a blight hits. Chronic wasting disease will knock the numbers down. Same thing with the foxes. You'll see a ton of them, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're down. But right now, we're peaking.
Pray for a blight, but
what you said too, I appreciate, because if you have people also who would want to help with that might be also a great benefit to us. So we should, if we do discuss this, we should advertise it and have them come. And maybe there could be some type of deer commission.
We have a meeting on Thursday, and we're going to talk about it as a group.
I just realized, so one of my very good friends is the Senior Director of Conservation at the National Deer Association. And I may also ask him if he could join us. They're in upstate New York, but they're like Ducks Unlimited, but for deer, and they manage deer populations. And they manage deer populations also for people who have they're hunters. They're like Ducks Unlimited, but for deer. I mean, that's if you know what Ducks Unlimited is. It's their stewards and conservation group, but for hunters.
A healthy population.
Yes, they're all about managing a healthy population.
There's a very strong program out in Brenath, and they're too far away, but they do a great job in Upper Wakefield and all around that area. But they might be able to give us some pointers of who the best people are over here too. But yeah, it's a research project.
Next year we'll have a plan. And how do I contact
I'll grab you my.
information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? John
Morris again. Just to follow up on the deer, I was part of a committee years and years ago. So the township should have files somewhere about the deer committee. And Bernathen was one of the ones I think we used here back 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
No, it's longer than that.
Is it Bernathen?
Yeah, it's
No, we're that young. But yeah, it's been a long time, but
15
yeah.
or 20
Yeah.
years.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was involved in the 90s.
Any other public comment?
No,
Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Real quick.
They don't need the signature still, do they?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
shit.
one thing that